If you are a music producer who is trying to get placements with a major artist, this is the most valuable video you will watch this entire year. From everything, from getting nice at making beats and melodies, to branding, to networking. I break everything down in this video on how to do each step and exactly what you need to do in order to get a major placement. Everything. If you don't know who I am Now Waves. I have produced for artists like Lil Baby, Chris Brown, Pooh Shiesty, Rodriguez, Gucci Mane, and the list goes on, okay? And today, I'm going to break down how you can get your first major placement in 2026. So let's just get straight into it. Now, this class will help you if you are a music producer who wants to produce full-time and get major placements, if you're a music producer who's confused about how to get yourself out there and make connections, and if you're a music producer who's been grinding hard, watching mad YouTube videos, but you still feel stuck. You just want to make placement-ready beats and melodies and actually have a career in music production. If this is you, then this class will help you. Now, to introduce myself, as you can see, this video is long. And the reason why it's long is because no one on YouTube has ever given this amount of game on this subject before. And I want you to know it's because they can't, okay? My lessons have literally helped thousands of producers level up and many get major placements as well. Nothing I talk about in this video is theory. This is all tried, tested, and proven. If you can't sit through this whole video of free game without doing something else or getting distracted, then you're not gonna make it. I'm sorry to tell you, you're not gonna make it. So get your notepad ready, turn your notifications on, and let's lock in. All right, so brief introduction to who I am, right? In 2020, I was a college dropout. I was sleeping on my parents' couch. I was wondering if music production was ever gonna work for me. This was me in 2019, working at Food Lion, a grocery store, basically as a janitor. Okay. By 2021, I was working with Lil Baby, Lil Durk, and Pooh Shiesty, and I was full-time in music production. 2022 and beyond, full-time, major placements, Billboard, Grammy nominated, multi-platinum, got my own sample kit company, have helped thousands of producers, made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of music production, traveling the world, placements, all that. Okay. That's what's going on. Now, as you can see, these are just some of the producers that I've helped. Max Shooter, Skolo, Cutoff. These are multi-platinum, Billboard #1, platinum, gold producers, okay? This is a whole bunch of my students that I've helped, 5-star reviews. I didn't ask for 5 stars. I just said, what do you think? And that's what they told me. More DMs. So if you want to, pause this page and read these, you can read them. I'm not going to go through that. Now, the first stage of getting your first major placement is getting nice. Now, the question is, how do we get nice? So let's go through it. For many producers, they try to monetize. You try to get placements and be seen before you spend that dark period of just getting really good at making music. It's a period of time where your friends are laughing at you. People are assuming it's just a phase. People are asking you at family gatherings, how's that little beat thing going? How's your little music thing going? Yeah, how's that little thing going? You know what I'm saying? We've all gone, I've gone through that. I know what that feels like, right? But this is your own personal training ground. If you ever watch like anime or boxing movies, you ever watch those training montages where the main character, he's not that good yet, so his teacher or like an older frenemy or something like that keeps beating him up, and then he just locks in and trains. This is where we all need to start. We all need to start in that period. If you want to get placements, you need to be making placement quality music consistently. You need to have a catalog of placement quality music. See what I'm saying? Rock Lee, if you know, you know. Now, let's reverse engineer the process of getting a placement really quickly. Let's go through the process and what that looks like. So first, what happens? The label puts the song out. Well, this is the last thing that happens. The label puts the song out on all platforms, right? That's your placement. When the label actually pushes the song and it's out officially. Now, before that, you have to get paid for the music you've produced. Before that, the music has to get submitted for release to the label. Before that, the artist has to use the music that you produced or co-produced. Before that, the artist has to actually like the music you produced or co-produced. And then before that, the music you produced on was sent to the artist or played for them in the studio. Before that, you have to have connected with someone close to the artist or the artist themselves. And before that, you have to be visible to the major artists or people who have connections to major artists. And then before that, you have to be creating fire music that actually makes you attractive to artists and other people who have connections to major artists. So that's the first step. You have to be making the fire music that actually people want, or else you're not going to get no placements. It's just not happening. So how do we get nice? Well, I call it the PRP system, or the placement ready producer system. And within the PRP system, we have the NIV framework. So what is the NIV framework? The NIV framework is you take a niche and you immerse yourself in that niche. That's the first step. And then you have immersion. And then you have volume and feedback. Okay, so let's go through it. I know some of you like, NIV, are you talking about the new international? No, we're not talking. It's not a religious thing, okay? So first thing, niche. You choose one sound to lock in on and master. So that sound could be like Opium, Ken Carson, Destroy Lonely type sound, or you could do real instrumental R&B like SZA or Kalani. You could do melodic ATL style trap. You could do soul samples, vintage melodies, Florida sound, dark trap melodies, trap soul, sexy drill. It doesn't matter. But you start off with just one subgenre, okay? Now, all the people that I know who have made it very successful with getting placements have done this to some degree. Even if they created their own sound, like sexy drill obviously is its own sound, but what is it based off of? It's based off of melodic trap. It's based off of drill music. And then it was a blend and then it created, became something different. But every sound is based off of something first. So you have to start with that base, okay? So some of you might know Kavi. What did he start with? Soul samples. Some of you might know me. I started around melodic ATL trap, Lil Baby inspired melodies, right? Max Shooter, vintage, exquisite sort of samples that sound, they sound vintage. Dante Made It. His whole thing is like that Florida sound, right? I could go on and on. These are all platinum producers, sample makers, and platinum drum makers, multi-platinum at that. So this is not just me making something up. This is a true and tried and tested formula. So what are some of the benefits of choosing a niche? It's easier to get better quicker when you're just focused on one thing. This is a Bruce Lee quote. You've probably heard it. I fear not the man who has studied 1,000 kicks, but the man who has studied one kick 1,000 times. Imagine you try to learn basketball, baseball, football, and at the same time, every day, all at the same time. It's way easier to just learn one. You get really good at it. It's not even negotiable. You must do this. Second, before I go on to the second thing, imagine some of you are trying to learn R&B melodies, you're trying to learn Lil Baby melody, you're trying to learn Future type melody, you're trying to learn how to make guitar melodies with your VST, you're trying to make stuff for gun, you're trying to do everything at once. You're trying to be the most versatile producer ever. But the problem is you're not actually getting better at any of them. So you're just stuck spinning your wheels trying to be versatile, when really all you need to do is focus on one thing, get really good at that one thing, and then eventually it's going to be able to make you better at getting better at all things quicker. Like, I didn't start off learning pop, but if I decided to learn pop right now, let me make my face bigger. Let me make my face bigger real quick. I didn't start off learning pop, but if I decided to learn pop right now, I would get so good at it quickly because I learned some other styles. And I focused on one style first, so I know how to learn the style. So the benefit of choosing a niche is just really getting good at that style so that you can actually get better at other styles quicker. But you gotta focus in on one first, okay? Versatility will come after this. It'll come next. So now, continuing on. If people know that you create a certain style, they'll come to you for that and you can build a brand around that. When I first started getting placements, I niched down to Lil Baby and Memphis inspired loops, and people came to me specifically for that sound. When Pooh Shiesty got out recently, I was flooded with people asking me to send stuff through for him. So if you're a sample maker and you make a certain style of samples, it's easier to stand out amongst the other sample makers who are generalists because people know exactly what to look for when they want to make a certain beat. Now, I'm not saying your whole career you just have to make one style of melodies, or even right now you just have to make one style of melodies or beats. But in the beginning, when you're learning how to really make placement ready music and when you're learning how to really cultivate your sound, it's very helpful. It's very helpful. Now, next benefit is very easy to build a signature sound so that you can build a brand around it to attract opportunities to you. All signature sounds have some sort of root to them. In order to even develop a signature sound, you have to do the same thing over and over again so people will recognize you for doing that thing. Okay? Now, I talked about this, how learning one thing will help you to get other things right? The one thing you learn about music is that there's no new chord progressions. There's no real new melodies. We're all doing the same thing over and over again, just in different ways. So once you learn one niche, really lock in on that style, like I said, it'll make it so much easier to learn more. You'll see the same patterns, the same chord chord progressions, all of that. You'll just see that they're done in different ways. So how do you actually choose a niche? Number one thing you could do is start with what's trending. You have to start with what's trending that you actually already like too. So don't just do a trend for the sake of doing a trend if you don't actually like that trend, okay? Trending sounds are good to hop on because you can ride the wave and the current of them. It can accelerate you to a better position quicker because that sound is actually in demand. If you could create something that many people want, many people will want to work with you. I'm all for originality. Don't get this twisted. I'm not saying to be a clone. But if a trend also lines up with a vibe you authentically enjoy creating, then hop on it. The goal is not to be a copycat. It's to learn the sound inside and out, be able to create it, then be able to evolve it into something that's actually your sound in a new and inspiring way. You want it to be your version of that sound, okay? Now, that was niche, right? That's the niche part. That's the N. The next part is I, immersion. Now, what do you have to do? You have to immerse yourself into that sound. Not just the sound, but music production in general. You have to listen. If you don't listen to what you want to create, you'll never do a good job at it. Some producers think it's a flex to not listen to music. Like, you're not cool because you don't listen to trap and you only listen to rock, but you produce trap. Like, cut it. That's not cool. That's not a cool thing. You get no cool points for that. When you're always listening to the sound that you're aiming to create, that you're aiming to emulate and push forward, subconsciously, it just starts to get in you. So then when you go and you actually make something, you go on to FL Studio, you go on to Logic, you go on to Ableton, right? When you begin to actually make something, you'll find yourself doing stuff you never really consciously thought of doing. But because you've been listening, new techniques and melody patterns just start coming to you naturally. So listening helps tremendously with sound selection as well. For those of you who struggle with sound selection, a lot of producers don't know like which sound to put on top of the other sound or how to blend sounds together, which sounds to blend together. When you listen, you'll get a feel for what sounds that work. Listening also tunes your ear and improves your taste. I cannot stress this enough. Taste is what you personally think sounds good. It's like, why does this snare sound better than that snare? Can anybody tell you objectively? No. But what they can say is that it just feels right to me. That's what listening helps you to do. It helps you to understand what actually feels right. So what you do in order to immerse is you study the sound in depth, break it down, and you listen to it all the time. So one of my students, Indo, he used the PRP immersion protocol that I taught him in my one-on-one coaching and decided to focus on an underground type of sound. This is what his beats sound like now due to the immersion. All right, once we finish with immersion, we need to go to volume. The more you make, the better you get. You've got to challenge yourself. You can make 10 beats in a day, make 10 melodies in a day, make 14 melodies in a week. Stuff like this makes you way better. Now, of course, everybody has their own process for making music. Some people, they like to take their time and others like to pump beats out. But the point is, you want to make more music in your style. You can't just be making 2 beats a week and think you're going to improve. When you train volume, you get better at pattern recognition and hearing what works and what doesn't, okay? So volume is very important. Now, volume doesn't mean anything if you don't have this, and that's feedback. You could keep making beats and melodies over and over again, but without feedback on what's good and what isn't, and what to do in order to improve, you could stay stuck in the same spot, guessing and wondering why your stuff is still bad. So what you need to do is get around producers who are better than you, who have accomplished more than you, and who can tell you what you did wrong on the music, what you did right on the music, and what you can do to fix what you did wrong so that you could become better quicker. Now, the 10 beats a day, 14 melodies a week thing is not an every day or every week thing. These are simply exercises that could be used at different times, okay? Every producer is different, and every producer has different ways of approaching music. So volume also means volume of quality. So with producers I work with, sometimes I have them do like quality days and quantity days. Sometimes you'll have days of producing that are more focused on making the most music and days where it's simply about how good that music can sound. So it's the interplay between the two concepts that makes you better over time. Now we're gonna move on to the beat and melody making masterclass. This masterclass is an in-depth melody and beat making class that I really only had private for my students, but now I'm making it public and available to anyone who's on my YouTube channel. So make sure you watch this and apply what I'm teaching in this, because I'm not just giving you a tutorial on how to make a certain type of beat, but I'm showing you how to think through making beats and melodies in a very in-depth sort of way so that you could go and take it and apply it immediately to your own music. All right, so this is the Melody Masterclass. And essentially, this is how you really get good at making melodies. This is the real sauce, the sauce that nobody wants to tell you. So I became a multi-platinum music producer by making melodies for Lil Baby, Lil Durk, Chris Brown, Pooh Shiesty. In this video, I'm going to show you the approach that I take to make melodies that other producers want to use and artists get inspired by. So the first thing you want to do before you even start making melodies is you want to choose a style to master. Now, I know I talked about this earlier, but I want to impress this upon you because a lot of producers, they really want to be versatile, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's easier to learn other styles first once you mastered one. Then you can create your own style. But in the beginning, choose a style to master. Like if you really research producers, you'll find that a lot of producers' sounds sounded like another producer before them, before they developed their own sound. Okay, for me, it was like that 4PF, Lil Baby, Atlanta trap sort of style. And then I mastered that style first, and then I created my own stuff based on it, and then delved into other type of samples. So this is my philosophy, okay? The next thing is you want to actually listen to the music that you want to create. A lot of producers think it's cool to not listen to music, but creating that playlist of your favorite songs in the style is very important because the more you listen to it, the more that you start to get the music on a subconscious level. You know, it's not something that is easily explained. You just sort of get it. You know, you start to hop on FL and you're just doing things that you never even consciously thought of because you've been listening to the music so much. It's just in you at that point. And that's what you want to get to that point. You know, music is not this thing where it's like, oh, you just put this chord and this key and, you know, it just sounds beautiful. Like in order to really get that creative flow going, you're going to have to intake things that inspire you. So really intake and listen to the music that you want to create. Okay. Now, next, what you're going to do is you're going to learn the elements of the style. You're going to learn what sounds are used, what chord progressions are commonly used. You have to do a deep dive on the music and figure out like what exactly is going on. This is the knowledge part. A lot of producers skip this part, and this is why you're in the DAW just clicking around, just doing stuff. Instead of just doing stuff, actually learn what's going on. This is why I'm showing you how to do this, okay? So imagine, you know, you wanted to learn that old trap style, right? Like Chief Keef or Glow. Of course, we know that that's inspired by, you know, Waka Flocka, 808 Mafia, D Rich sort of sound, okay? So what would we do? We would define the style. Okay, this is what I'm aiming for. What are some common scales used? Phrygian, minor Aeolian, okay? That's something that we could find easily just looking it up online, looking up songs and seeing what the key is or the scale is. And then we're going to look at some common bass lines. We're going to find those and we're going to take those from the music that we've heard and we're going to put it inside of our FL, inside of a MIDI scale kit or a MIDI pack that we make ourselves. And we're going to also find some common chord progressions. All right. And then we're going to look at the usual instrumentation, like what sounds are being used, orchestral sounds, strings, tubular bells, xenology, theremins, synth leads, and then who are some producers who really go crazy with that sound, okay? And then also some standout songs. Now, once we find all that out, then the next thing we do is we start creating some melodies around what we learned. Now, before we learned these things, we didn't know what the heck to do. We were just guessing. Now we actually have direction. We have a way to get better. That will be both fun and enjoyable for us. So we're gonna make we're gonna make some hard melodies at the beginner level with just this. We're gonna use a scale, a bass line, and a repeating pattern or counter melody. And then we're going to use a basic effects. We're not gonna do too much with the effects and tweaking the sounds. Okay, once we have these 3 layers, essentially, or 3 to 4 layers, if we add, a switch up melody, we have our whole melody. So it's really simpler than you think. It just takes doing that knowledge first and then applying it. And that's where things can maybe get a little tricky, but it shouldn't be too tricky if you actually follow along. So I'm gonna show you exactly how to approach it in FL now. Now that we know exactly what chords we can be using, what bass lines we could be using, some of the melodic choices that we hear in this music, the BPMs, and the overall vibe and sound selection, down to the types of instruments and VSTs that we're going to be using. We can now formulate some melodies using this sound. Now, the thing is, we don't have to go all out to start. In the beginning, we're going to use a 3-layered system. It consists of the bass line, the chord progression or repeating pattern, and the counter melody. And then we may add a switch up melody in there as well. So really 4. This is the basic melody layering system that gets placements. Okay, so I don't want you to think, oh, this is too simple, this is too basic. No, this amount of melodies, this amount of layering, this is actually the basis for when you hear songs that have, major artists on them and stuff like that. It's usually only 3 to 4 sounds max. Like sometimes it'll be less than that. So I'm going to break down how you can do this, how this looks, and let's get into it. So we're going to start with our sampler. We're going to go to Phrygian. Now you just go here in FL Studio. If you have a different type of DAW, you should have a place where you can find your scales. And if you don't, then just look up MIDI scale pack and you'll be able to find any scales in there. So we're going to go to D sharp minor. You want a nice dark key for this. D sharp Phrygian. All right. I'm going to copy and paste everything. We just want to fill up the whole piano roll. Now some people ask me like, nah, why don't you use this here, this thing, snap to scale, where it only lets you use the notes in your scale. The thing is, I like to see the scale when I'm creating the music. It's my personal preference. I don't like to just, use that. All right, we want the whole thing to be covered essentially. Now, we're gonna start with contact, start with our bass line. So we're on 146 BPM, as you can see, and this is our bass line. So we're going to take this and we're going to bring it down an octave. Elongate this a little bit. All right, so that's our bass line. Now the bass line is very important because it basically carries the whole beat. Like if you change the bass line, you're going to change the whole vibe of the melody. Now that we have our bass line, we're going to create our repeating pattern or chord progression. So our chord progression that we're going to create, we're going to use R and R brass SRX from Xenology. It's one of those old, old trap style sounding brasses that we're going to use. So I'm going to take our bass line and put it there first. And then we're going to create some chords over this. So let's see. Start with our root. Easy way to make chords is just literally start with your root, go up, skip the next note in the scale, skip the next note in the scale. And there's your first chord. Very, very simple, very easy. That's why I say to start off, you don't exactly need to know music theory to make some hard melodies. You just need to know your bass lines and your scales. And some might argue, well, that is no music theory. But what I'm saying is you don't need to know that this is the minor 5th chord to the 6th dominant suspended, like not necessary when you start. Not saying it's not helpful, but it's not necessary. So now I'm gonna go back to this one. That sounds better. We're just gonna use the same chord. And then go back to that chord. So now we have our basic chord progression. Now we're going to sauce this up a little bit. One of the things we could do to sauce up the chord progression is we can add an inversion. And basically an inversion is when you take the chord and you just put like one of its notes in the higher octave or a lower octave. So like I could take this, bring it down here, right? Or I could take this, bring it up here. Bring this down here, bring it up here. See how the feel is different? Like the energy is different because we brought these notes up. It's the same chords. We really only have 2 chords that we're using. But because we brought these up and we left this one down, it sounds like it's going, like it's going, you know what I mean? Let me not even use my mouth to explain myself, but you know what I mean. So boom, that's our chord progression. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some rhythm to it. So. Copy the chord, just add some rhythm. And I'm gonna add it here too. All right, so that's our chord progression. Done. So we got our bass line, we got our chord progression, and now we just need one more sound. Now we're gonna add another pattern, a counter melody that goes along with the original melody that we have. So what I like to do when it comes to counter melodies, and by the way, we're gonna use a bell, it's an analogy, simple bell. And I like to kind of hum along to the melody and see like, what melodies am I coming up with in my head? You know, so of course this takes practice, it takes time, but this also takes listening, because the more you listen, the more you're going to be able to come up with melodies that just sound good along the music that you're creating. So I hear something like dun, 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 dun. So that's what I'm going to put here. So because we have our scale, it's very easy to just find where those notes are supposed to be. whole melody. That's the whole basic melody. Now, to prove it to you, let's just play the beat and see how the beat sounds. Because I already have a beat for this. Hold on. I could take this part and I could take the melody out. And this could be a whole song, just going between those two sections of the bell with the horns, and the horns by themselves with the drums. That's enough. Now, we're gonna get into how can we elevate this melody even more? How can we add more to it without making it too much for an artist to rap on? Well, the next thing we could do is we could add another counter melody. So we're gonna go to our BBC Symphony Orchestra, strings, violin. We're gonna go to pizzicato, and we're going to create a repeating pattern over this. Now, this repeating pattern can be played with the chord progression, or it could stand alone. That's the point with this melody. This repeating pattern can be played with the chord progression or stand alone. So let's see. So this is now, me personally, I like to play, when I make melodies, I like to play beats with them just to see how it sounds and to see if like I could still catch the flow and if anything is gonna interfere with the artist. That's just something that I do. You don't have to do it like that, but that's how I go and approach melodies. Okay, nice, still sounds good. So now, let's just say we take that. So now all of our melodies are in their own sections. Now we don't need to play them all at the same time. So what we could do, we could section them off. So start with our All right, so what did I just do? As you can see, we have our chord progression
We have our bass line. We have our chord progression, our bass line, and we have our counter melody. We have our chord progression, our bass line, and we have our switch up melody, which is another repeating pattern that we use here. And then we have our bass line, our repeating pattern, and our counter melody. So as you can see, there's only 4 sounds, but these 4 sounds can make up a whole beat. And notice we didn't do too much as far as like manipulating the sounds or adding a whole bunch of effects or anything like that. We just created this based on the formula, of that bass line, chord progression, counter melody, switch up melody. Easy. Okay? So how you would approach learning this or learning, a certain melody style is you would just do this a whole bunch of times. The 3 to 4 melody method. Now the last thing that we can add to this, just to spice it up even more, is we can add a lead to this. And the lead is essentially, it's going to play off of this motif here. And essentially a motif is like a theme of a song. Now really, we could say that it's this right? That's really like the main melody sound. However, this is a very catchy part as well. So we're gonna add another part that plays off of that. So we're gonna go to a lead here, and let's see. I'm gonna render that. I'm gonna render that. And that is a wrap. So let's hear what the whole melody sounds like without the beat. Now, another thing to notice about this melody is like the way that I pattern it out. So of course, in the beginning, I started with just the chord progression. And then each time we go past 4 bars, I'm making some sort of switch up. And that's something I like to do when I'm making samples to send out to other producers, because I want there to always be like some sort of shift or change in between bars just to keep things interesting. So as you can see, we have it basic here, then we add our counter melody, then we add the support to our counter melody here. That's what I like to call this, because it's like, it goes along with the counter melody. And then I have another switch here with our pizzicato, and then I take out that main sound, have our counter melody there, and then we go back to the basics, and then we have another layering.
Now what we're gonna get into is some more in-depth melody making sauce about like the different ways to actually structure your melodies. And there's a lot of game in this, so please pay attention. All right, so every melody has a focus. And what I mean by that focus is that you can either have, well, these aren't the only focuses you could have, but generally speaking, when you create a melody, you're probably gonna have either the key that's gonna be the focus, which is like when you have that repeating pattern, something like this. So you have the keys that repeat. Or you'll have a pad that's the main focus of the melody. So it could be a pad that sounds like this. Or you might have a lead that's the focus. Then you always have the opportunity for chords to be the focus. Like a key, but it's still chords. So it's not a pad. Now, why is this important? Whatever you use as the main part of your melody is going to set the tone for the melody. So this makes a beat sound like it's moving. You know, it's all those repeating patterns. It's moving faster. It sounds like it's moving faster than this, even though it's the same BPM, because of that movement that's in that melody. So it's the same when you have this lead. It gives it a different dimension. It gives it a different feel than if you were to use like a pad or a key or something like that, or a pluck, right? So just keep that in mind when you're making your melodies. Think about what's going to be the star of the show. Are you going to make the star of the show your chords? Are you going to make it a repeating pattern? Are you going to make it some pads? Are you going to make it a lead? Decide what you're going to make the star of the show, because that is going to set the tone for your melody. All right, so there's some things you need to learn before you get into making melodies at a high level. And one of them is called rhythm or bounce. So let's take this melody, for example. Let's just play some of it real quick. Let's just play this part. Let me show you. Right? Some of you have probably heard this melody before. Now, you're probably looking at this like, yo, what is that? That's too, yo, I thought this was supposed to be a class. It looked like you just showing off. Listen, I'm about to break it down. It's about to look real simple in a minute. So let me take these top notes out, right? And let me just work with this first half. Let's take these A's up 1 octave. Does that look a little bit more simple? Look, we're in 1, we're just in step, right? And we're just going up. Then we're playing around with the semitone here.
And then we're just repeating that same pattern. It's the same loop right here. Just repeat it. Okay? Very simple. Now we're going to get into the subgenre and how to create the subgenre of like old trap and glow inspired melodies. We're going to get into all of that. But right now, I just want you to focus on the rhythm of it. So if you hear this, right? Let's just mess with this pattern. Just mess with this pattern solely. That sounds a certain way because we're on step. Now, if I decide to change the way that the notes hit, I could go put this here. I could put this here. I could put this here. Put this here. I could put this here. I could put this here. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds different, but we didn't change the notes. Even if we bring these back down, we didn't change too much. All we did was change that bounce. So that feels different. I know you bouncing it a little different. Pause, but I know you bouncing different. Hold on, let me put the bass notes back. Ooh, I like that. Right? See how that's different? So when you know how to, tweak the rhythm of a melody, it can add a lot of variation, a lot of different dimensions. Now, what's something else you could do? Something else you could do is add what we call a polyrhythm. So a polyrhythm is when you have two different types of rhythms playing at the same time. It originated in African music, and it's when you hear, like, for example, you hear that. Right. Now, what if we add this to the top? That's a different rhythm, right? Ta 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 ta. That's different than right? If we add that to the top, we get something. We get a different dimension. Right? It's different. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to experiment with rhythm. You want to experiment with just not having your notes just be playing like just one after the other. Like that's going to create, like that could be cool sometimes, but sometimes you got to experiment with different rhythms. You could take this and I could go 1/4 beat. We could take it back to the fourths, right? We could take it back to the fourths and we could change just some of them, right? So we could change this here. Right. Right. So now we have a mixture. Right. So it's dun 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 dun. So this is on the 1/3 beat and this is on a 1/4 beat. So we have a mixture. That adds to the quality of our music because we have these different bounces. We got these different rhythms that make our melody more exciting and makes it less generic. And we don't want generic melodies. Okay, we don't want generic samples. So that's rhythm and bounce. You want to experiment with rhythm and bounce. So what I want you to do, I want you to, this is the action step. There's going to be an action step after everything, right? The action step for this is to take your MIDI chords, right? So you have your MIDI chords that you can add here. I mean, not your MIDI chords. Why am I saying MIDI chords? Take your MIDI go scales, right? Your scales. Take your MIDI go scales, put whatever scale you want, C minor, D minor, and create a basic type of melody. So you might create something that sounds like you might create something that sounds like this, right? Let's just start here. I'm gonna have to cut this part out, man. So what I want you to do is I want you to take this part, right? I want you to just copy this into your DAW. And then I want you to tweak the rhythm of it to create different patterns that sound good with it. Okay? So just tweak it, change the patterns so that you can make it sound good, and play around with that. Get that rhythm and that bounce together so that you have an understanding of, okay, how can I change the rhythm? How can I change the way that this feels so that it sounds more interesting than just being the same pattern playing over and over again? How can I add some dimensions to it? All right, so we went over a few concepts, but this is the last concept that I want you to really know before we start to make melodies. And that concept is the melody and the motif. So obviously we know that the samples that we're creating, this is the melodic portion of our music. But we also have this idea, this concept called the motif. And the motif is usually that pattern that you can just remember. Like it's that repeating pattern that makes up the vibe of the track. It's almost like the signature of a track. It's like if we were listening to like the Office theme, that dun, 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 right? There's other instruments and other melodies in that same track, but that's the one. That's what you remember. Like that's the motif of that. So the motif of this would be what? It would be this horn right here, right? It wouldn't be this. This is making up the melody, of course. All this stuff, this is helping to formulate the sound, right? But this part, we're gonna remember this part. We're gonna be able to sing this part. That's something that we're going to be able to remember. So when you're making your melodies, you want to, I'm not going to say you always have to make a motif. You always have to make something like this because you don't. But certain melodies, it's really powerful. It's a really powerful tool that you can use, creating a pattern that you can just remember. Because one of the things that you could do too is you could take it out and then reintroduce it in a way that's it's way less obvious, but it's still in there. You're reintroducing it. It's like a theme. Like all the best themes, all the best theme music has motifs in it. They all have those repeating melodic sounds that you just remember. Like you just remember that. So how do you create a motif? Well, this has to come from your own mind. What do I mean by that? Well, let's get into it, right? Let's get into it. So let's save a new version. Let's get into it. Let's go here. And if we remember correctly, if we remember our formula, boom, whole tone, half tone, whole tone, half tone, whole tone, whole tone. Remember our minor formula, right? Our natural minor formula. Bring all this stuff back. Copy it. Now, obviously, you could always use that MIDI scales pack, but it's good to practice that so that you just get into the hang of knowing, how to create your minor scales, how to create your major scales. Really, the minor scales. I don't remember the last time I used a major scale. So copy this. Actually, we're gonna cut that, and we're gonna put it onto this one. And we're just gonna turn this one off. So now we know we are on C minor. So now, how can we create a memorable pattern? Well, let's think of one. Mm, 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 mm. I want to go. Now, what will you notice about motifs? These repeating patterns. That's a pattern that you can easily remember in your head. Why is it so? What makes this easy to remember? This right here. This right here. It's a simple. That's what makes it easy to remember. The fact that it has that repetition in there. So that's something that you need to remember about melodies when you're creating them. Repetition is extremely important because that repetition is going to make it easy to remember. Okay? So experiment with creating different motifs. Think of some melodies in your head. Remember, think of like the Office theme. Right? It's the same thing repeating over and over again, but it's so catchy. So if you can't hum it, it's not a good motif. If it's like, like watch, I'm gonna show you something that's bad, right? I'm gonna show you a bad motif. Like you can't even catch that. You can't whistle that. You can't hum that around the house. You want stuff that you can hum around the house. Stuff that you can, whistle. That's the type of stuff you want. So like when you listen to this, you want it to be something that's just in your head as you just moving around. That's how you create a great motif. That's actually one of the best principles that you can use to create fire melodies.
Now, if you're an instrumentalist, you know how to play piano, you know how to play guitar, you know how to play music, but you don't know how to translate that musical knowledge into making fire beats that artists actually want to use, this is going to be very helpful for you. This is an interview between me and one of my students, IQ, who I had to teach how to actually take his jazz knowledge, his band knowledge, his symphony knowledge, and turn that musicality, because he knows how to play keys, he knows a bit of music theory, how to take that and actually apply it to making fire beats that artists actually want to use. Check it out.
So this is my man IQ right here, one of the most talented producers I done worked with so far. I'm glad to have you here, bro. Can you just give the people a quick introduction about who you are, what you're about?
How you doing now, man? I'm so happy to be here. I'm IQ from New Orleans, where Houston, Texas. Um, a full-time engineer. I had a full-time career doing that for 15 years, and now just doing my beats and music full time, man.
Nice, nice. So before joining the program, like, what were you struggling with most as a producer?
The thing that I was struggling with was being able to get my ideas out of my head, but also organize it to where it could be used for production. Um, by me, uh, I mean, my background is jazz band, symphonic band. I played in HBCU bands and stuff, so I know uh, how to like arrange, write, compose. But you have to be able to translate that differently when you're trying to produce beats. So I didn't know how to transition from overproducing to being able to produce enough
Mm.
for making beats.
Yeah, and that's common with musicians. Like a lot of times, people who know how to play keys or they know instruments and stuff like that, they don't know how to translate that into like making a hard beat for an artist. So it's
Yes.
interesting that that was like where you started. A lot of people think like,
Yes.
"Yo, I know how to play an instrument. I should just be fire at making beats automatically." But that's not always the case. You know.
Right.
So what made you like want to join my program over someone else's? Because I know like there's a lot of producers out here is doing like mentorships or coaching or whatever.
Yeah.
What made you choose me?
Actually, your character is the thing that made me come to you, right? Because almost everybody who is out there doing this, they flashy, they showing their cars. I'm in Dubai, and I'm sitting there like, I cannot see myself sitting in the bedroom, and next thing I got that. So to be able to find a producer that is talking to me, I can see myself in him. That made it more of a thing to where I can trust this guy. I can easily relate to him and see myself going to where he going. I don't see me packing up and having 4 and 5 Bentleys in Dubai. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it can happen,
Yeah.
but that isn't your average producer role.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Nice.
And and I thought you'd be so fire.
Appreciate appreciate that. Yeah. So from the beginning, before you were here to where you are now, what do you see as being like the biggest change or breakthrough as far as your music is concerned? Or just your whole, career in general?
I think being able to understand the key elements that I need to be able to package that into a beat. Again, I was overproducing.
Mm.
So when I first got started, I'll play something. People be like,
Oh,
oh, that's
that's
tight,
nice.
but I
I
only
would-
need this part right here.
Right.
I'm like, man, I ain't just played a Mozart to the seventh power. And so now I have been
Being
able
able
to
to.
like overplay, but now I know how to chop those up to be able to put those in my beats. And now people think, oh, I bought these phrases or these loops, and I'm like, nah, I played that big because I know now how to uh catch those nice catchy things and to be able to implement them in my music. So I think that's the main thing that sticks out from my beats.
Mm. Okay. How did it feel being able to that switch, like make that shift from going from there to where you are?
Mind blowing, mind blowing. Only because it's like I knew where I could be. The
Mm.
struggle was how to get there. So when um I joined your course and I was like starting to understand and then the practice, the practice, the practice. And then I finally got it to where when I started playing stuff and that you like, man, that's tight, man. How'd you do this? Or in class, everybody else like, hey, how did you find that? Is it a loop? I'm like, nah. So I was able to start being able to capture my ideas. And so I feel like that has helped me be able to have my own sound. So I'm not going to buy all these sample packs and loop kits. I'm like, I can make that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because that's the one thing you already had the musicality. So
Yes.
you already understanding the musicality, really the main things you needed were just like, this is how you actually convert that into making a beat for the artist that you're looking to make beats for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to like your milestones, like I remember you had a pretty big milestone in terms of like winning a beat battle. Can you talk more about that situation?
Yes, I was with you like maybe 2, 3 months. So I was being able to make beats that were nice and catchy. And I was able to beat those guys that was able to just have a loop or pattern and throw on drums.
Mm,
Me being able to tap into my sound, how I told you, when they press play, I was catching them from the intro. I think a lot of the problem with how things sound today is somebody could have a loop or something catchy and they just worried about trying to hear the 808 or the drums. The thing that I'm being able to do is catch people soon as I press play off of my instrumentation. So when I went to that beat battle, it was crazy because I lost the second round, and how it works is when you lose, you get like one more shot, but you gotta like beat everybody else going out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I took that loss, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta play every track I got has to be hitting. I gotta beat everybody. I got one shot and every beat. I mean, it was like just fast. I didn't even have time to choose it. I win. They'd be like, all right, IQ back up. I'm like, okay, play two. I win. Okay, IQ back up. Seven. So my beats was able to just go and beat everybody that came. And actually the beat
Crazy.
battle was here in Houston,
Yeah.
which was like everybody out of the state of Texas. So to be able to beat that many people and to just come from making beats in my room, it was mind blowing. I haven't ever had a milestone like that ever because I was shy to go out there and play beats. If there's guys like I got beats, I'll be in the background like, yeah, I make beats too. No, I'm like, find me an aux cord. I'm ready, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. So you lost the second round, and then you had to
Lost
like
this.
run through everybody.
Run through everybody.
Crazy.
No pause, no break. Every time I beat somebody, I had to go back on stage and beat that person, go back on stage, beat the all the way to the end.
Sheesh, that's crazy, man. That's
And actually, it was judged. They had it was three judges. The first dude is the producer and engineer for uh Scarface them here in Houston.
mm,
So he was there. Um the guy named Toby, I forgot his last name, but Toby was the producer who had made Johnny Dane for Mexican OT.
mm.
So he was there. He had tapped in with me. And the third judge was an A&R for Coco Jones.
Oh wow,
He also tapped in and stuff. So
it's fire.
to go from making beats inside these four walls and being shy to go there and have these people say, "Hey, bro, I like all your stuff. I like your sound." I had them asking me, "Man, it was hitting. How you do your drums?" I'm like, "They asking me
Yeah,
how I program my drums," and that was the first time I ever had that type of attention on me.
wow, that's a beautiful experience. That's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay, so what would you say to someone who's like, man, I don't know if I should join this, or they're kind of on the fence. They know about the program, they know that is going on. What would you say to somebody that's thinking about it?
I would simply say, man, I don't see myself better than anybody. And I feel like I was in those shoes to where I had all doubts. Like, is he going to train me? Is he going to have the tools to do it? Do I have the time? Any excuse that you have, and to see where I came from to where I'm going, it's an easy answer because I have paid to go to other producers, other schools, and mentorship. I've spent thousands of dollars to not be able to be where I'm at today, to where I've only been with you actually like 12 months exactly. a year, and I have learned the most ever. So if someone is really trying to do this and be able to seek placements or even just produce full time on their own, it is a no brainer because the thing that you charge, you cover everything from being able to just learn how to first start to like have beats and make beats all the way to being able to find artists and do this full time on your own. So there's no program I saw that would take you from being able to learn how to program beats, how to at least start your sound selection, all the way to being able to do this full time on your own. I haven't seen none, and I'm always online.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Nice. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. IQ. You got anything else you want to say to the people before we get out?
Oh yeah, yeah, man. Niles is a great teacher, and he's going to be there every step of the way. I mean, it doesn't matter what time. I always have an answer back. Whether it's a DM, a call, a Zoom call, he's definitely going to be there for you every step of the way. He will answer every single question. So it won't be a program that you're going to have all these taped calls and stuff that was already pre-done. He's going to be able to help you in real time, and he's always going to be there to help you every step of the way.
Cool. Cool. IQ. Appreciate that, man. You
No
know,
problem. Thank you.
success as you continue, on your music production journey. See great things coming, on the forefront for you. So I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Now we're not quite done with FL Studio yet. I did show you some melody making sauce, but now we're going to get more into the beat making and the actual drum programming that you need to know and some of the arrangement as well when it comes to producing beats for artists.
All right, so in this video, we're going to be breaking down how to create beats artists actually want to buy and use. So the first thing we have to understand is that artists do not want complex beats. Okay? Artists don't care about how many snare rolls you could put in it, how many, switch ups you can do, how complex your melody is. That's not what does it. What does it is the vibe. What is the vibe? The vibe is if you've ever been in a cafeteria in high school and somebody starts playing a beat on the desk and somebody starts freestyling, that's the vibe. Somebody just starts beatboxing and somebody starts rapping over it. That's the vibe. When you look at early hip hop music, a lot of times you'll notice that they really don't have that much going on. They might have one beat going throughout the whole thing, might have one sample going throughout the whole thing, and the artist is just flowing on it. Now, of course, the sound has evolved from then, but the overall sentiment is the same. Give the artist a good vibe to use, and they will use it. Do not overthink it. Don't be too complex. So the first thing to think about is your simplicity. That starts with the melody. So let's just play this melody, right? And let's count the sounds that we're using. So this is the intro right here. So what do you hear? You hear a vocal, you hear a bass, and you hear a pluck. Doo 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 doo. That's the pluck. You hear that ooh oh. That's the vocal, and then we have a bass. That's three sounds. When we get to the first part of the hook, what do we have? We have our pluck and a very low bass piano just to keep that progression going. But it's essentially just the pluck here. Now we go into the second half of the hook. What do we have? Another pluck over the pluck just to give a counter melody, and then we have the vocal on top of that. So that's three sounds plus the bass line. Vocal, pluck, counter melody, bass line. And notice how it's mixed. That vocal's all the way in the back, kinda. Just giving it a little variation. And then that pluck is in the middle. And then that dun 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 dun, that counter melody is on top. So simple. right? We have about 2 to 3 sounds max in this beat. And in the hook, we have the most layers. Now, if we take it to the verse, let's listen. Just the bass line in this hook. The bass line and this pluck. One sound. One sound. 2 sounds. We got the vocal and the pluck. Vocal and pluck, 2 sounds. So we have 1 to 2 sounds in the verse, and then we have 2 to 3 sounds in the hook. Or really 1 to 3 sounds in the hook. So you can use that as kind of a guidepost or a marker, with your melodies. All right, cool. In the hook. And this is just so that you could get the vibe together. But you might be like, all right, in the hook, I'm gonna only use 1 to 2 sounds. In the verse, I'm only use 2 to 3 sounds for the melody. Right? At any given point. So I'm not gonna layer 7 sounds on top of each other, 6 sounds on top of each other. Why? Because if you do that with the melody, you might not be able to hear it. It might be too much for the artist. All right? Now let's add the beat in. So we're still on simplicity. We're still on simplicity. Let's look at the 808. 808 is just that's just a vibe. Not doing too much. Not doing too much. So now let's take it to the hi-hats, right? Actually, before we even take it to the hi-hats, the 808 could have been so many different things. I could have made the 808 something where I just went. Right? It could have been so much, but we're not doing all that. We're keeping it simple, keeping the vibe going. So as you can see, the rhythm is the same here. The rhythm is the same here. I don't change up the rhythm here and here. It's the same. Doom, 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 doom. Ding, ding, doom, doom, doom. Same rhythm. Even though the notes are different, right? It's the same rhythm. What does that do? It's almost like a hypnotizing sort of thing. When somebody's listening to it, they know exactly how to feel, where to feel the beat come in, because it does the same thing over and over again. That's what artists like. Okay? And I know this because somebody actually bought this beat from me very recently. That's why I'm showing this beat specifically. Next one, we're gonna go to the hi-hats. So as I said in the hi-hats video, you want to always make sure that your hi-hats are something that you can predict, because you're making your hi-hat rolls based on rhythm. So right here. Right? So it just goes along with that rhythm. And pay attention to how it's kind of interacting with the melody as well. So we have this. Right? Every time it goes up to that ding 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 ding, we have a hi-hat roll. That's how you create rhythmic sort of hi-hat rolls, or just rhythm in your beats, period. Like, play around with how the rhythm of your hi-hats, play with the rhythm of your melody. See what I'm saying? So that's one thing you could do. You could play around with the rhythm of your melody, with your hi-hats. Now with our clap, we can see this is pretty simple. Just bop, bop. It just does that the whole time. Not doing too much with that. Simplicity is key here. Simplicity is the key, but you want that vibe to be good. But the simplicity is the key. Now let's go into the second half of our 808s. Now, right here, we have a little variation. Where do we have variation? Well, we added the open hi-hat. Once again, not doing too much. And we also added a snare roll to the end. So boom, we only added two elements, but it created a lot of variation. 2 elements in the drums, but it created a lot of variation, right? And then we have this key point right here, is what I call it, like a snare roll, just to give it a little bit of extra flair, you know? And all of these sounds are working together to create this vibe. Now, as we go back into our verse, we take away some elements. So we make the hi-hat pattern regular. We take out the open hi-hat. So now we're anticipating that stuff coming back in. We're like, I can't wait for that open hi-hat to come back in. I can't wait for that snare roll to hit back in, but it's not here yet. So we got to make the listener wait. Sometimes you do that. You create variation that way. So instead of creating variation by adding a whole bunch of elements, I got to add another snare roll here, I got to add a crazy 808 roll. You could create variation by literally manipulating what you already have, taking away some stuff. So if you had a hi-hat pattern, just make it a 2-step. If you had an open hi-hat pattern, just take the open hi-hat pattern out. Simplify your drums a little bit, and then make them more complex in the next part. That's the variation you want to add. So a rule of thumb I like to say is you want to add variation or have some sort of variation every four bars. So this is of course on double time. And if you don't know about double time versus regular time, this beat could be 75 BPM because 75 plus 75 or 75 times 2 is 150 BPM, right? So technically this is 4 bars, even though it's 8 bars on here because we're making the beat in double time. All right. So if you ever hear me say like every 4 bars and you're like, wait, that looks like 8, it's because we're making the beat in double time. That's all. So technically, this is really not 8 bars, it's 4 bars. Right. So yeah, anyways. Every 4 bars, you can have some variation. That helps the artist to actually care about what your beat sounds like because it's not boring all the way through. Now, that's not to say that you can't have beats that have 0 variation or beats that have very little variation. Because you listen to some Pierre Bourne beats and his beats do have variation, but they might not have them that much. You know what I'm saying? Like some beats really are like the same almost all the way through. But you always want to have variation. So a good rule of thumb is to have variation every 4 bars. So you'll see there's variation right here. Go here. Variation right here. Variation right here. Why? Drums is changing. We added those hi-hats back in, those open hi-hats back in. And then we also pitched down the vocal of this melody. In this last part, variation, we took away all of the hi-hats except for the open hi-hats. So that's another variation. We know that we're about to tone down the vibe of the we're about to bring it down in the verse and we're about to go back into the hook. So we take out that open hi-hat. So now you see like there's variation all the way through and then we go back into our hook. So that's another way you create the beats that artists want to use. It's about your spacing with your drums. So having enough space for the artist to use. Your spacing with your melody, not doing too much, not overpowering anything, so that there's still space for the artist. Right? That's the first thing. And then the next thing is you want to keep things pretty simple. You don't want to overdo anything. You can add variation, in key points, but you don't necessarily have to
adds so much. Like I could add some variation right here like this. Let's see. Yeah, I'll add it here. Boom, boom. Right? Variation through manipulating the elements versus just adding a whole bunch of stuff to it. And this is what I call a refined beat. You know, like it's good. It's not too much going on. It has a lot of space. It's a great bed for our artists to use. And all the sounds in it are working together, right? So we have a vocal that sounds nice behind our pluck. And one of the plucks is soft. One of them is soft and more watery. Like it has a lot more reverb. It's not as hard as the next pluck that we have in that sounds more like an actual acoustic instrument in there. So that gives it a nice sort of variation too. That all is the sound selection that works together. So when you're creating beats that artists want to use, you want to make sure that you always have space. You keep things pretty simple. You have some key elements, some key points in there, like a snare roll or, a drop off right here, like where you're taking out certain elements that were in beat for the whole time. And then you want to have your variation, through manipulating the elements versus just adding stuff. So that's how you create the beats that artists want to use. Now, as far as like, let's say, mistakes not to make. One of the mistakes that you don't want to make is you don't want to overdo anything. Okay. So I would actually say it would be better to err on the side of underdoing the beat than overdoing the beat. Okay. So if you're like, man, I don't know if I did too much. I don't know if I did enough. It's better to feel like that than to feel like, man, I'm doing too much with this. Because not doing enough might be what the artist actually wants. It's okay. Underproducing, I would say, is better than overproducing. Because if I make a beat like this, artists might be like, yo, I'm trying to get a flow. He might be like, dang, I can't even get a flow on this. Right? But now if I do it this way, where I can do something like this. And you could easily find a flaw on that, even though there's not that much going on with the 808. So that's your key right there. Always err on the side of under producing it a bit. And there's a lot of nuance to this. Because you might be like, well, what is under and overproduce? Like, how do I even know if I'm doing that? Well, that's where taste comes in. That's why you have to be listening to a lot of music, because you can hear the artist flows that you're trying to work with. Right? If you can't hear that flow, it's going to be hard for you to figure out if it's too much or if it's enough or whatever. Like, I can't do a Tupac flow to this beat. This isn't the beat for him. So if I was trying to make beats for Pac
or for Griselda or something like that, or for Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher, J. Cole, somebody that's like a lyrical spitter, I'm not going to make this type of beat. And there's going to be a different sort of bounce to it. So that's another thing you have to think about. You have to think about the way the artist will actually come on the beat. Right? So that's your first mistake. You don't want to do too much. Doing too much is just putting too much stuff in the beat and over producing it to the point where you're just not having enough space. And that's really the biggest mistake. Once you get past putting too much going on and just saying, you know what, let me make this a bit more simple, you usually will have a beat that somebody can rap on. Okay? So this is how you create beats that artists want to use.
All right, your melodies are nice, your beats are nice. Now what do you need to do next? Well, most people would tell you, all right, it's time to start sending stuff out, start connecting with people. I would disagree. I would say the next thing to do is start to establish your brand. Okay, that is the next focus. Now, why is that important? Well, we're about to go through it. So let us get to it. So what is your brand? Your brand is how you would like people to perceive you. It involves your image, that which you associate with, your values, and the overall vibes that you give off. You didn't see that typo. Start with why and everything else will follow. So your why is, why do you do what you do, right? So for example, with me, I do what I do because I want to empower music producers with the resources to make incredible music, get placements, and make a living with their music. That's what I've always done. In this video, I show my plaques so that people who watch me associate me with professionalism. They associate with me with career success, and it gives me more credibility and authority so people will actually listen to me and actually watch me and want to work with me. So as you can see in this video, I have my plaques, I got my placements and stuff like that. Cool. Now, values. I say specific things in my content to signal what my values are. For example, I'm a producer on YouTube, not a YouTuber. I say that all the time. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a producer who'll be making YouTube videos sometimes, right? So a lot of people who watch me, some of you like me, you like my brand because I say that and because I really focus on actually producing for artists and making music and not just the YouTube side of things or whatever it may be, right? So associations, this is who I work with or what I'm known to be around. That includes producers, artists, and also just spaces in general. So I've worked with major artists. I've been on Producer Grind. I've been interviewed by Cymatics. My name is Now Waves, right? So there's a waviness to my beats. I'm big on melodies. I'm big on sample making. I teach things. I give game. That's all a part of my associations. Sometimes people tell me that they like me because I talk about like metaphysical things or spirituality because I'm very into that and like manifestation as well. Like I remember one of my students, he told me like, man, the reason why I decided to work with you is because you told me about Think and Grow Rich. Like you were talking about that in one of your videos and it resonated with me because I was like, yo, this guy has a different type of mindset than other producers that I've seen. So your associations are all of the things that you associate with and help to make up who you are. So how do you come up with a brand with having big accolades, right? So your branding is not just about, oh, the fact that I produce for Lil Baby or I produce for Lil Durk or whoever. No, it's about who you are. So number one, decide your why. Why does your brand exist? Why do you exist as a producer? That's going to inform everything else. Your why might be, man, I just really love making extremely beautiful music. And your whole thing is beauty, right? You might have all these different sound effects and different melodic choices that you make because your thing is all about beauty. Somebody else's brand might be, man, I really want to push forward this dark, extra super dark sound, right? That sounds like it came from the pits of you know where, right? That might be your idea. So all your 808s are going to have a certain vibe. The way you make your melodies are going to have a certain vibe. Your image should have a certain vibe that matches up with that, okay? So your image, going to that. How do you want to be seen? How do you present yourself? I present myself in a certain way. I have a certain uniform that I use when I present myself to YouTube, when I present myself to Instagram, right? A lot of people know me for wearing a black tee. A lot of people know that I'm, a little jack. You know what I'm saying? I be in the gym. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people know me because of that. That's part of my image because that's what I want to present. That's what I want people to connect to when it comes to me. Part of my image is that I'm teaching. I have a lot of videos where I just sit there and I talk. Some people don't like that. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? The point is I want to attract the people that vibe with me. Okay, so sometimes I do videos where I'm talking about the habits of producers. Sometimes I do videos like this where I'm breaking down things very in depth and structured. Sometimes I do videos where it's just about the cooking up. But that's all a part of my image that all makes up who Nile Waves is. So you have to decide what's going to make up who you are as a producer. Now, values, once again, we already talked about that. What do you stand for and what do you stand against? For me, I stand for being a producer who actually produces for artists and not just other producers. I stand for being a producer who actually puts in the work and doesn't try to take shortcuts. I stand for being a producer who can do a lot of things. Like I can make melodies, I can make beats. I can hop on a sample, I can make a beat right before a session and get that beat placed, right? I stand for actually learning what you're trying to create and then creating it. I stand for locking in on one sound. I stand for creating a niche, right? Now, these are all things around music production because part of my thing is I help and I teach producers. But if you're more artist facing, some of the things that you could stand for could be something like, man, I stand for creating going back to the beauty, I stand for creating things that are my type of artist really loves. Or I stand for example, I know my man Rot, right? He produced a lot of stuff for Mexico Joe. He stands for like social justice. He stands for people having equality and people being treated fairly, right? That's something that he talks about a lot on his story. I know another producer, Kid Hazel. He stands for healthy living and healthy eating. So he talks about that sometimes. So what you stand for doesn't just have to be about music. See, that's what connects people to you beyond the music, is what you stand for beyond the music. So talk about that stuff in your content. Talk about that stuff when you present yourself to the world and you post on your stories and stuff. It could be as little as, like let's say you stand for like Kid Hazel, you stand for healthy eating. You might have a graphic of your beat, but it's in a garden, or you might be cooking up in a garden. Like you could just think of creative ideas like that actually go along with what you stand for, right? Some people, they're not gonna like it, but it doesn't matter. You're not trying to be liked by everybody. You're only trying to be liked by the people who actually vibe with who you are as a producer. And the thing is, as long as your music is fire, people are gonna rock with you. That's why the music comes first and the brand comes next. Because as long as your music is fire, people are gonna rock with you. And then when you create that brand behind it, more people are gonna rock with you, but they're gonna rock with you stronger because you have that brand. It's like, man, I like healthy eating too. Man, I like Think and Grow Rich and Manifestation too. Man, I like hard, dark beats too. So you have to understand what you stand for. Now, also, what you stand for is just as important as what you stand against. So like me, I stand against laziness. I stand against producers who they don't want to make the sacrifices to actually win. That's why I talk about selling my PS4 a lot. I had to sell my PS4. I never went back to gaming. FL Studio became my game. Now, some producers not going to rock with that. They're going to be like, man, I love gaming. And there's no problem with gaming. But I'm just saying, for me, that's what I did. And that's what I advocate. I don't advocate not gaming. I advocate cutting out the distractions that you shouldn't have in your life that's going to help you to get to where you want to go. So that's part of my thing. Everybody has their own thing. Okay? So that's the one for your values, what you stand for, what you stand against. And then you also have to define your associations. What are you associated with? Who do you associate with? What type of artists? What type of rappers? Right? So like I have an artist, a producer that I work with who is a Christian artist, right? He's a Christian producer. So he doesn't really want to rock with people who are not faith-based. That's his own preference. He doesn't have to. He can rock with whoever he wants to. So he only produces and wants to produce for artists who are faith-based. So that's a part of his association. So he's not going to associate with someone who's, throwing up devil pitchforks and, talking crazy, because that's not a part of what he associates with. Okay. Your associations are also like some of the views that you may have. So, that goes back to what I was saying about, social justice or religion or, whatever it is, whatever it may be, your associations, who you associate with, right? So you might associate with somebody who's very polarizing, and that may turn people off from you, or it might turn people on to you. you know, depending on who you decide to associate with. So you want to make sure that you define these things and you make them very clear. Your associations are also could also be like quality over quantity. Like I know my man Ayo Sim, he's big on quality over quantity. So he would never advocate for somebody to like make 10 beats a day or anything like that. He's all about, man, I just want my quality to be right. You see what I'm saying? So that's one of his associations. Everybody has different associations. You have to know what is yours. That's going to help you to develop your brand. Okay. Now. Why is branding important for music producers? Let's go over it. So the first thing is that people want to work with and connect with people. After the 2020 shutdown, y'all know what I'm talking about, people started craving more human connection. Also, with the rise of AI, people want to connect with other humans even more. So according to Pew Research, in just the US alone, about 44% of adults say other people cannot be trusted. That means that almost 1 out of every 2 people that will see your profile or your content or you will be automatically likely to distrust you. So your brand helps to improve and increase that trust. So let's look at producer A and producer B, right? Got Steven Schaefer. He's a great producer. He makes some fire beats, right? But as you can see, they got totally different profiles, right? Producer A and producer B. Now, imagine for a second that producer A and producer B both want to sell a beat to the same artist. So Steven Schaefer sends the message, yo, let's work on some stuff, bro. I love your music. Let's do it. Let's work. Producer Mook sends the same message to the same artist. Who do you think has a better chance of getting a song with that artist and actually selling that beat? Obviously, it's Steven Schaefer. Obviously, it's producer A. Now, why is it producer A? Because automatically I could tell this is a real person, right? This is a real profile. He's got a face in his profile picture. He's got his name here. He's got pictures of the studio and his music. He's got videos of his music on his page as well. So I know I'm connecting with a real person. Nobody wants to connect with this. Nobody wants to see this in their DM. Nobody wants to see that. Okay, nobody wants to see this type of profile in their DM. It just doesn't help, doesn't work. So you want to set up your profile in a way where people know it's you and they actually can connect with you as a person and not just somebody that just wants to sell them beats or send them beats. Now, your brand is important because it's easier to network and remain in people's minds. IG, Instagram is the music producer's business card. Whenever I go to the studio, whether I'm in Atlanta, whether I'm in LA, you know what, it doesn't matter where I'm at. If I go there, first thing somebody's gonna say that I meet new, yo, what's your IG? Yo, get me on the gram. So now once we exchange Instagrams, they're gonna go to my page and they're gonna see like, oh, everything that I've done. Oh, this person worked with Lil Baby. Oh, they work with Lil Durk. Oh, they work with this person. Oh, they make this type of music. Oh, they got sound kits. Oh, they got classes. Oh, they got this, they got that. They know what I'm about just by looking at my page. So you want that to be the same for you. You want people to know what you're about just by looking at your page. And then after I leave that studio session, after I leave the presence of that new person that I just met, whether it be a producer or artist, if I'm posting content on even just a semi-consistent basis, just once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, then that is a constant reminder of who I am and my value. That way I don't disappear from that person's mind. You see? Most of us, right, we spend so much time on our phones just taking in content. And we see the same people like every day. We see the same people almost every day. And part of what that does is it starts to create this familiarity with the person. So now, when you do send a message like, yo, what's up? Do you have any studio sessions coming up? Let's say it's an engineer. You might ask them, yo, you have any studio sessions coming up? I would love to send some beats for some of your artists. Much easier for them to say, yo, let's go, because they're warmed up to you. They feel like they know you better, maybe just as a result of seeing your content. It may not even just be about you actually connecting with the person and talking to them, which we'll get into in networking, but just your branding alone creates a familiarity with the person where they feel like they know you a bit more because you've been posting and because they've been seeing you. So that's important. Okay. Now, you can build a name for yourself that attracts opportunities to you instead of you always chasing them. So now somebody could say, yo, let's say, for example, Produce Mook, right? Say, oh, yo, Produce Mook, man, he be in the studio, he be doing this, he be doing that. Yo, check out his gram. Now you're being talked about in rooms that you're not even in. And I'm telling you, that's what happens. Yo, pull up his Instagram. What's he on? Yo, what's his Instagram? I'm gonna check him out. But if your stuff is not set up right, you're gonna miss out on opportunities. I'm telling you. You're gonna miss out on opportunities. So people judge off of appearances, man. The reason why we even have the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, is because that's how people naturally act. We naturally judge people by how they present themselves. And that's why presenting yourself on social media properly is important in 2026. Having a brand as a music producer is important. Okay. So in order to play into what people do and people's judgmental sorts of ways, right? You create an image and a style that is appealing for people to be a part of and nice to know. Now, let us continue. The key to becoming a visible producer brand is content. This is non-negotiable to stand out and build connections in 2026. It's not negotiable. Okay? Many producers, they groan, they moan, they cry when they hear that they got to make content. But the fact of the matter is, we are in a content world. Okay? You got to adapt with the times, man. Yo, you cannot cry about having to make content. It's part of the game now. Okay? It's a part of the game that will put you ahead of other producers who don't want to do it. Okay? I'm sitting here, I'm making this video with an iPhone. If you got an iPhone, you can do this. Okay? So if you can make good content, you can get eyeballs on your stuff and attract more opportunities to you for placements as well as money. Creating content is something that will help organically promote your brand to more people. I just seen this producer, he posted a video of himself like making a beat or mixing a beat or something like that, and SZA tapped in with him off of an Instagram reel. Like, it's wide open right now. The internet is wide open for anybody who decides to take advantage of it. Content is wide open for anybody who decides to take advantage of it. So you need to be one of those producers who does. Okay? So your content is either going to fall into two buckets. It's either going to be entertainment or education. Educational content for producers usually looks like tutorials, videos giving sauce or game, and instruction or how-tos. Okay? Entertainment looks like beat cookups, studio session videos, vlogs, videos with artists in the studio. You can also do short form, like reels, TikToks. You can do long form, which is like YouTube videos streaming. My advice is to get good at one avenue first and then expand. Whichever seems the most intuitive for you, at first start with that. I think that streaming is only going to get bigger and people really enjoy connecting with the person in that way. So in 2026, I see more producer streamers get bigger. Like we've seen like Noah Major go crazy with that. Gohan, Laser Dims producers going crazy with the streaming. So I see producer streaming becoming way better, way bigger in the coming months and years. So your content strategy is highly dependent on your brand and what you're trying to accomplish. Like for example, with some of my students who are sample makers, I have them post very specific content that'll attract the type of connections that they're looking for. It also helps you with your DM response rate. Why did I say wait? Your DM response rate when reaching out to collab with people. So if you're mainly aiming to sell beats to artists, then your content needs to be more tailored towards them. So I'll give you an example of this. It goes back to the example that we gave about producer A and producer B. When you send a DM to someone, they're going to look at your profile before they answer your DM, most likely. That's what most of us do. Somebody DMs us, we look at the profile, who is this? If your profile looks like you're not no serious producer, you're just anybody, you're running in the field with your dog behind you, posting pictures of, noodles and stuff, don't look like a producer, a lot of people are just not going to respond. Or if your stuff is just blank, you ain't got nothing there, it's like, come on, man. Come on. You can do better than that. So when it comes to like type of content, right? So you might have content where, let me get in your face, man. Let me get in your face real quick. You might have content where you're mainly focused on selling stuff to artists. Well, you want to create content that is representative of that. So you might be giving tips on how artists can better songwrite or how they can improve their vocal mixes or different resources that they can use in order to further their journey as a vocal artist, whether that be a rapper or a singer. Make content like that, make reels like that, make YouTube videos like that, and then you'll attract artists who then you can sell your services to. Now, if you're mainly focused on producers where you want to sell kits, you want to sell melodies, you want to connect with producers so that you can start to collab and get placements, then make things that producers would actually want to watch, right? Make stuff like breaking down a sample or sending a beat out. Now, of course, you have to be nice before you get to this point. That's why getting nice comes first. That's why that is like the most intensive part of all of this, is getting nice. But you want to do something of value for other producers. I mean, that thing could even be like, you may know how to sound design. You want to post videos about sound design, or, you know, put out free kits, whatever it may be. Your content could even just be you just making a beat, which is, like I said, it's more entertainment, but it's something that us as producers will watch. So remember that, you know, you want to tailor your content to the audience that you're looking to connect with. Oh, let me change my thing again. All right, let's get it. So one of my students, LaRon Durrell, he is a music producer, but he's also an instrumentalist. He came to me knowing how to play piano. He grew up in the church playing piano, and he wanted to learn how to take his skills that he learned with piano and apply them to music production, specifically R&B music. Now, he's a crazy fire R&B producer, and one of the things that we started to do was we started to come up with strategies in order to connect with different producers by him just posting videos where he's playing one of his melodies out on the piano. And I've seen some of his videos, like there's like multi-platinum producers in the comments. There's producers who he may have never been able to connect with by just DMing them that have saw his reels. And these reels don't have like a crazy amount of views, but they're targeting the right people. And because of the way the algorithms work right now, you don't even have to have a big account, and you could get in front of the right eyeballs. So he's been getting in front of the right eyeballs and being able to connect with artists and producers, but specifically producers because he's a sample maker. He's been able to connect with producers who really vibe with his sound, and he's been able to make those connections based off of his samples, but also based off of the brand that he is building. Okay, so now let's look at some examples, right? Of some great brands and content examples. So Toomfi, for example, he makes the new wave melodies, happy melodies. Part of his brand is like, you know, the blue color, but also like lizards. And he makes these really happy, like upbeat type of melodies. Now, Toomfi creates a lot of videos where it's just him and it's his FL Studio, but it's edited in a fire way. Okay, that's one example of content that you can make. Both producers and artists are attracted to this. Producers like this because it's like, yo, this is a fire beat and it's unique, it's different. And I just like seeing this beat be made. And then artists vibe with this because it's like, yo, that's a beat that I would want to use. Shout out to Toomfi, okay? Next, we already talked about Steven Schaefer, but what's a part of his thing? Drums first and sampling. He's like a new age Kanye kind of, right? He kind of makes his brand around that. Why am I saying that? Look at what's in the back of his thing. Kanye West, Kanye West, Kanye West. Look at what he said, 5 beats a day for this summer. That's a quote from Kanye West where he said, I made 5 beats a day. 5 beats a day for a whole summer. He's big on sampling, and he's big on drums first. What do I mean when I say drums first? He starts with his drums and then adds a sample and everything else. So that's a part of his brand. Now they mainly blew up on like making Instagram videos, right? And reels. Now let's go to two people that we talked about earlier on YouTube, right? We got Max Shooter, who is of course big on sample making, right? So as you can see, you got all these synths, right? He's always all these synths, you know what I'm saying? Because he's big on sample making. He's big on experimenting with his music. He's a sample maker. He's a genius. That's kind of how he comes off, right? He wears glasses because he's smart. Now, he's actually really smart, but I'm just saying that goes along with his brand. Now, he doesn't have an afro anymore, but he still keeps his picture. Why? It helps for his brand because people can recognize it. Now, Kavi. We know Kavi started with the soul samples, but what else does he do? He has a sample kit company, Sonics, and then he also is someone who gives producers a lot of game as well. Someone like me where we give producers game. Max Shooter as well gives producers game. A lot of our stuff is more producer focused, right? So he's showing secret VSTs before and after using certain things, right? He's giving a lot of game. So that's a part of his brand. And as you can see, he got the same like blue thing behind. He got the same sort of thumbnails. When you look at people's brands, what you'll notice is that they do the same things over and over again in different ways because it helps to maintain a certain image and vibe in the person that is going to look at them and view them. So that's the branding part. All right. Now in this video, I'm leaking my full branding worksheet. It's the same worksheet that I give to everybody that I work with in order to actually formulate and create their signature brands.
And building a brand identity. So as you can see, Take Keith, FD's up. I'm working on dying. Metro Boomin wants some more. Zaytoven, run that back turbo. Wheezy out of here. Cook that up, Quay. I'm not cursing on purpose. But yes, these are all producer tags, and I'm sure you recognize them. These tags are all just one aspect of these producers' brand. So when you think of a brand, it's simply a distinguishable and perceptible mark that a person or company uses to influence the behavior of another who comes into contact with it. It's about what people or companies decide to choose to associate with and what they choose not to associate with. So for example, when you see a Nike logo, you immediately start to think of sports, you start to think of running, you might think of basketball, you might think of football. This is because they chose to identify this realm, which is sports, and associate that Nike logo and name with high performance in those areas. So they did that so that when you see that logo, that's what you think about. So imagine somebody put a big old Nike logo on a suit and wore it to a wedding. We'd be like, what's that? Is this like a sports wedding or something? A sports themed wedding? We'd automatically assume that because that is the brand that Nike has built. Nike doesn't associate itself with formal events and weddings and, being luxurious. It associates itself with sports and athletic performance. So now let's take this back to producing. Your tag, your look, your style, the artists you choose to associate with. This is all what goes into your brand. Remember, brand is primarily what you choose to associate with, and it's also defined by what you don't associate with. So if you put out lackluster music, that's bad for your brand. If you only work with talented artists, that's good for your brand. When you have a strong brand, you could demand more money. You get more opportunities and more people want to work with you. It makes it easier to sell beats, and it makes it easier to do anything in music production. People like what other people like. So if they hear your tag or they see you in the studio with a big artist or even see that you produce a song for an artist that's hot, that increases the quality of your brand. And that's why it's so important to have one, because let's say you don't have a tag and you produce a beat for an artist, and then you try to play a beat for another artist that maybe they don't know you, they don't know your work. But because they don't really know who you are, it's like, okay, this beat is cool. But imagine you produce a beat for an upcoming artist and you use your tag on that. And then you play it for another artist and they hear the tag, like, yo, I heard your tag before. You work with this person, that person. It's like, yeah, I work with that person. That makes a big difference in people's minds. Believe me, it's helped me out a lot, especially when going to different studios in Atlanta and working with people and playing my beats and like, yo, I've heard your tag before. You produced that song for Rilo. Oh, you produced that song for Baby. Oh, you produced that song for this person. So it definitely helps. Think of like buying Nike versus a random sneaker, or Cheetos versus store brand. Even though the random sneaker or the store brand might be cheaper, the perceived value of Nike and Cheerios is higher because of their associations with celebrities, high performance, people liking them. Therefore, they can charge more and be bought more. So the store brand is not making as much money as the brand that has all the brand identity and value built up behind it. So how do you build your brand as a producer? Well, you start with your genuine interest and style. Okay? So whatever you're interested in, you might be interested in anime. You might be interested in Star Wars. You might be interested in graffiti. You might be interested in art culture. I don't know. But whatever it is that you're interested in, you need to make sure that that's showing through your brand. So your online presence, your in-person presence, and your style of content you put out should all be consistent. It should all come together. You want that style to be easily recognizable. So there's a few things you need to get solid, right? You got to get your name. You got to get your tag. You got to have a logo. Perhaps you don't always have to have a logo. I think it's good to have one. You got to have your style of presentation and your style of content. For me, I started out making like simply Lil Baby inspired loop kits. But the reason I did that was not because they were hot. It was because I really liked that sort of sound. So because I had that niche, people were coming to me, people were asking me for loops and stuff like that. That was genuinely a sound that I wanted to push forward. So you want to think of what you genuinely like and start to put those things together. And I have a worksheet for you to start to do that. So let's go to that worksheet. So the producer brand building worksheet. The goal and the objective of this worksheet is to build a strong and consistent brand by defining the key elements of your identity, how you want to and how you want to be perceived in the music industry. So this worksheet is going to guide you through defining your values, your style, and your associations. So the first thing is your producer name. You got to have a memorable producer name, something that people can remember, is easy to spell, and is connected to your brand's vibe. Don't call yourself Murder Beats if you're not about murder. If you don't want to be called murder all the time, murder. If you don't want to be called that, don't call yourself that. Don't create a name that you just think will sound cool, but you don't actually like, or doesn't actually vibe with you and what you're about. The next thing is you want to have that tag, murder on the beat, so it's not nice, right? The tag is your sonic signature. It's something that people will instantly recognize when they hear it on the track. There's so many iconic tags, and we went through them in the beginning. So what will your producer tag be? Figure that out. And then in order to make that, you could always get someone else to say it. You can say it yourself, add some effects to it. There's producers like, I know Rot, he does producer tags for people. You know, there's a lot of people online who do producer tags for people. So you might want to reach out to one of them too. Next thing is a logo. Like I said, a logo is more optional. You don't need a logo. It's not really necessary, but it can definitely help to solidify your brand, especially if you're doing content heavy. If you're going to start selling kits and stuff like that, it's like a visual tag, you know, kind of how like these different producers like Richie South, Metro, they have their own visual sort of style and brand to them. Your logo could act as another level of that, another medium to start to promote who you are through. So optional, but I would encourage it. Now, brand style. This is how you visually and sonically present yourself. It's everything from the type of beats that you make to the way that you dress to the kind of artists you collaborate with. So this is why it was so important to go through creating your own sound, because your sound is going to now start to be associated with what your brand is. So think of Zaytoven. Zaytoven is a great example of this because all his music is gospel inspired. You know, his keys, the way he does his melodies, all heavily gospel influenced because he plays in church every Sunday. That's what he does. So if that's not you, don't make that your thing. You know, like, you don't have to copy another producer and say, okay, I'm gonna make my style like this producer's, if that's not really intrinsic to you. Now, if you just really love that sound and that style, sure, take it and then make it your own. But don't look at someone else and say, well, I'm gonna do what they're doing, if that's not really you. So here, I want you to describe your sound. I want you to describe your overall look and aesthetic. You know, are you street? Are you laid back? Are you luxury? Are you minimal? Are you a fashion person? And then who are some artists that you want to associate with? Who are some artists that you admire creatively? You know, I want you to write that down as well. Next thing is your values and associations. So your brand is not just about, you know, what you stand for and the type of music you support and the culture you contribute to, but it's also about what you don't associate with. So one person could say, man, my brand is about innovation. My brand is about authenticity. My brand is about taking your music to another level. Or my beats are representative of, you know, the dysfunction in the world. You know, it could get real deep if you want it to be. Or it could just be simple, like, man, I just make some hard beats. It'd be that simple. But you want to know what your music represents. And then you also want to know what you don't want to associate with. Some people, they don't want to associate with low quality. I don't want to associate with basic melodies. I don't want to associate with negative energy. There could be so many things you don't want to associate with. So write some of those key things down so that you'll never put stuff like that out. Because if you do, well, that weakens your brand. You see? Next thing, content and presence. So your online presence is the face of your brand. Everything you put out online should be consistent and reflective of your style, from your Instagram posts to your YouTube tutorials. So what type of content will you focus on creating? That's the first thing you have to decide. Are you going to be doing vlogs? Are you going to be doing tutorials? Are you going to be doing collaborations with artists? Are you going to be mainly just posting the music that you've made? Are you going to be doing cook-ups? Like, what is it that you're going to do content-wise? And then how will you primarily share your content? Are you going to do Instagram? Are you going to do TikTok? Are you going to do YouTube? And then how often will you post to build consistency? Once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month? It's up to you. And that content strategy, that's something that we're going to go deeper into. But right now, I just want you to get a general idea and come up with some ideas about how you think you would do the best. Next thing, long-term vision. So I want you to think about your long-term goal as a producer. And we did this before in the beginning, but it's good to reaffirm it and also take what you've learned now and think about how that vision has maybe changed. Maybe it's changed. You know, maybe it's the same, but maybe it's changed. So now I want you to rewrite that vision or write a new one. What is your long-term goal as a producer? Because that will influence what that brand is supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like. Because if your long-term goals as a producer is to, you know, be one of the biggest YouTube channels for music production, then that might change how you decide to formulate your brand. You may choose to focus on doing more tutorials over trying to chase placements. You know, the next thing is action plan. So list out 3 immediate steps that you're going to take to build your brand right now. So this is example breakdown right here. Turbo, tag, run that back, turbo, logo, minimalist, style, up-tempo, energetic trap beats, associations, working with Future, Gunna, Lil Baby, values, high energy, street hustle, relentless work ethic, content, Instagram beat snippets, studio sessions with artists, long-term goal, produce for Grammy-winning albums, launch a production company. All things that Turbo has done. So the final tip is to be authentic. Your brand should reflect your genuine interest and personality. Don't just chase trends. Embrace what makes you unique as a producer. Whether it's your sound, it's your vibe, or the artists you work with, consistency and authenticity will grow your influence. So use this worksheet to build your foundation and revisit it as your brand evolves.
Okay, now that your beats are fire, your branding is dialed in, the next thing you need to do is network. If you don't have a network of people to send your beats and your melodies to, if you don't have people who could get you in studios with major artists, or you don't know any artists yourself, then you're not going to get any placements. Your beats will stay on your hard drive forever. So the next video that you're going to watch is a full training on what networking is, how to network in the music industry, and the steps that you need to take in order to start to get yourself out there and start to meet and connect with the right people. And then we're going to go into the full class of how to actually network and some exact strategies that you could take in order to connect with people, including DM strategies and others. All right, let's get it.
All right, so building your network. So in the music business, your network is everything. If you want to connect with people, you want to get placements, you're going to have a network. Now, the more people you know, the more doors can be open for you. And the more people you get a chance to know that maybe you would have had no chance of knowing yourself if you hadn't have met this person. So some of us have this saying that the music industry is like 75% about how you know and the rest is talent. So in order to get placements, this is extremely important that you get the fundamentals of networking down. So what is networking? Networking is simply the act of making connections with other people in a specific way. So in order for me to consider someone a part of my network, it means that we develop some sort of rapport, I have their contact information, and there is a level of value exchange between us. So that means that you're not just networking, doesn't just mean exchanging Instagrams. Networking doesn't mean just, oh, I met this person and I got their number. No, networking is we developed rapport, I have their contact information, and there's some level of value exchange between us. I can do something for them, they can do something for me. We have established a way that we speak to each other and a way that we can connect, and I have their contact information. I can get to them easily.
So if you just follow them on Instagram, that's not networking. They got to follow you too so that y'all can DM back and forth. You know, you got to have their number, they got to have your number, right? So when I say a level of value exchange, it means that they can help me and I can help them. For example, if I meet a producer at an event or studio who knows how to really play guitar really well, but I don't know how to play guitar, that's value to me because I don't know how to play guitar. If I have connections to larger artists, but he doesn't, that's value to him. So we can exchange value on the basis that I don't know how to play guitar and he can make some crazy guitar loops for me or help me with some samples that I need guitar on. And I can help him by getting these samples to bigger artists. So remember that the foundation of all your relationships in the music industry are transactional. Get used to it. You're only valuable in this industry based on what you can provide to others. So sometimes people have a rude awakening when they enter the music industry and they realize that, you know, people only really care about you if you can do something for them. That's just the name of the game. If there's a producer who's hot, he's working with, you know, some artists that are upcoming, everybody's going to be trying to send him loops. Everybody's going to try to work with him. Everybody's going to say, hey, come to the studio. Hey, come over here. Because you hot, you work with artists, you got songs in the streets, people's hearing your name, people's hearing your tag. Well, let's say this artist, he goes ghost, or this producer goes ghost for a year and he's not working with anybody. Well, all that stuff is going to slow down. The people that's going to be hitting him up, people are going to be like, yo, let's work. That's going to slow down because he's not as apparent in people's minds that people don't feel like he can do as much for them as he could before. That's just how this thing works. So remember that you're only as valuable in this industry as what you could provide to others. Next thing, who do you target? So primarily you want to target people who are at your level, right above your level, or right below your level. So for example, if you had one major placement, target other people with one major placement. And then those with a few minor placements with signed artists, and then those with a few major placements. You should always be thinking in this time too about how you can provide value to these people. So I know we don't have major placements yet, of course. But you may be a certain level in terms of your actual musicality. Like you can make some really good beats or you can make some really good samples. And because of that, you've been able to produce for some buzzing local artists. Okay, who else is working with the buzzing local artists? That's who you need to work with. And then who's managed to work with some of the higher tier artists from where you're at? And then who's still coming up, but they're talented? Those are going to be the primary people that you decide to reach out to and to network with. It's much easier to get to them than to just try to shoot straight for Future or shoot straight for Drake. Like, that's not really how this thing works. You've got to do your work at the ground level first. So how do you do this? Well, you need to be networking digitally and in person. So in-person networking, the best places to network in person are at studios. So like, let's say you work with an artist, you're locking in with an artist. Oftentimes they'll have studios that they go to regularly. Most cities have music studios. And when you go to these studios, you'll meet a lot of different people, from artists to engineers to other producers. These are all people you need to be networking with. And remember what I said qualifies as someone that you've networked with. Built a rapport, have the contact information, and you can provide value to them. They can provide value to you. The next thing is producer events. Beat battles are amazing networking events. I've met some very talented producers at beat battles, and other producer networking events is good as well. I went to an event called Pins and Producing one time and met a lot of different like multi-platinum and Grammy winning producers at that place. The next thing is artist showcases. So these are showcases where unsigned artists will like perform and show their work. They'll do their songs and stuff like that, and people will come out to see like, okay, who are the new upcoming artists in the city. That's always a great networking event too. You can meet a lot of different artists, producers, managers, and A&Rs at these types of events. Okay, so that's in person. You need to be researching what's going on in your area, but also what's going on in adjacent areas and places that you could get to realistically. So if you're living in Singapore right now and you're looking at an Atlanta beat battle, that may, depending on your funds and your time, maybe that's a bit of a stretch for you to get to. So that's why digital networking also comes in handy. So your best places to network as a producer include Discord. Many producers create Discord communities where they provide placement opportunities to people and a place for producers to network. Um, Discords could be dead, they could be lively, but it's kind of just like one of those things where you've got to just do your research. You've got to find different producers who are doing it, and if you find some good ones, join them, be active in them, and try to make the most out of the situation. Um, Ultimately, you want to be working with people. That's what's going to get you to where you need to go. So you see somebody that's firing in Discord, they got some placements or something like that, try to connect with that person, rather than just trying to be in the whole Discord and just use what the moderator of Discord or the builder of that Discord community is providing as placement opportunities. Like, really focus on the people around who are in there, because they might be able to help you even more than that producer who's setting up the experience. Like, for example, within Producer Ascension, there are producers who've managed to link up in person and work on things. Like, some of y'all have connections that I may not have. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm in the industry and stuff like that, I'm working with bigger artists. You might have a connection to somebody who works at a studio. You might have a connection to an engineer that works at a studio or something like that. And because of that, you might be able to take somebody that's here and help them, and they might be able to help you because they could provide some value to you. So always remember, like, it's about the people that you're connecting with. That's the most important thing, the people. So of course, the next thing is Instagram. That's obvious. You got to be on Instagram, be active, comment on people's posts, connect with people you like, show your work, and attract people that want to work with you. Now, I'm gonna give you a content strategy right here to network. And this is something I'm not going to make a whole video on, but I'm just going to tell you the strategy right here. It's not something I see people do often, but it could be highly effective. So let's say you have a producer that you really want to connect with, a producer you really want to work with, and you make samples. Let's say this producer has like 10,000 followers or maybe less, but they're working with an up and coming artist. Remember, I said up and coming artist. I didn't say an artist that's already established, an artist that has like 100,000 plus followers. No, they're up and coming. So this is an up and coming producer as well. You can make a video saying, I love this person's beats. This is a beat inspired by this producer. Let's just say Now Waves, right? I only have 17,000 subscribers. I only have 17,000 Instagram followers. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. So if you make a video like that about me, I'm gonna notice that. If the beat is fire, I'm gonna want to work with you. Period. So this is something that you could do to like get the attention of people. But I'm gonna go into that. But that's it's like you want to think of like creative ways to get people's attention. But who are the key people that you need to know? Key people you need to know are A&Rs. These are essentially the talent scouts for major labels. They're usually in charge of certain artists at their label and putting things together for them, including getting new beats. Now, A&Rs are made fun of a lot of times for being like kind of out of touch and always asking for beats that sound like something else. Like they'll be like, yo, bro, can I get like that Cardi B WAP type beat? Bro, I got a direct connect to Drake. Like, let me get some dirty Memphis style beat. Like they ask for stuff like that. But regardless of all those jokes, they really do put plays together sometimes. So A&Rs are good people to know. The next people to know are engineers. So the engineers is the ones who record the artist, and he's usually around them. So this is the person that's sitting up with all those buttons and dials and volume mixers and stuff like that in front of them. And they're sitting there recording the artist. Hey, punch that in again. Hey, do that again. They're the ones that's usually around the artist that's recording them. They are usually the key to getting beats to an artist. They're usually the key to getting beats to that artist because they are right there. All right. The next thing is the artist's guys. Now, what is the artist's guys? The artist's guy is usually someone around the artist who is taking a managerial role, but isn't necessarily a manager. So this might be his friend. This might be his guy from the block. This might be his homeboy, whatever. And they're taking like more of a manager role, like handling the business, handling the money, helping them set up shows and stuff, just being out in the streets for them and advocating for the artist. You want to get into cahoots with this person. You want to really get connected with them because
that's going to be like your entry into this camp. Because ultimately, when you're working with artists, you want to be able to enter their camp. Artists usually aren't just solo. It's usually the artist, and they got like 3 other artists around them who rap, who aren't as big, but they moving around with this person. They got their people, they got, their manager, they got a camp. It's their group, so to speak. So you want to be able to kind of get into that camp, and a lot of times the artist guy is what I call him. This is guy. That's the person that you want to connect with in order to like facilitate that relationship. Next one is obviously the artist. I mean, that's obvious. This is the person, the guy, the woman that you want to work with who's making the music. And the next thing is the manager. So the manager is the actual like official manager of the artist who's handling all the business. This is probably the person who they might have in their bio, like hit this person up for bookings or whatever. Like this person is handling their stuff. So those are the key people you need to know. You need to know these people. And for every artist, you need to know who their engineer is. You need to know who their manager is. You need to know who their main guys are. And if they're signed to a label, you need to know their A&R. So these are mistakes that you don't need to make. Don't spam people every day. Okay? Don't just be spamming people. Yo, can I send loops, bro? Yo, let me send something. Yo, don't do that. Don't ask for things without giving something in return. If you don't have anything to give in return, don't ask. You have to be able to provide value in some way. And then don't be generic in your messaging. That goes back to what I was saying earlier today. Might be like, I was listening to this person's beats all day. I love how they sound. And this producer might be like 5,000 followers, but they're working with some pretty fire artists. And then you post a story of yourself like just making a beat that sounds like what they might make. And they see it, respond, they might hit you with some fire emoji. You be like, appreciate that, man. You're a big influence for me. I just wanted to know if we could work together in some way. I got some loops for you. I got some samples for you. I made them especially for you, just taking into account your sound. I think you would mess with them. Let me know. That's not generic. Generic is let me send loops. Can I send loops, bro? Like, don't be generic in your messaging. It's not going to get the responses that you want. So, next thing, why networking is easy. It's easy because it's easy only if you play to your strengths. So you got to get creative with your value. Everyone has different unique gifts and talents that they can provide others value through. So for example, someone might be a great singer and they can make wonderful melodies. Imagine if you need vocal chops. I need some crazy vocal chops. Well, I can make some crazy vocals. This person could provide choir backing, vocals on the track, and even songwriting services to an artist. Another person might own a studio, or they might know somebody that owns a studio and they could get people in the studio for free. I know somebody who's friends with a very wealthy person, and they have a studio in a mansion, and they invite different producers to go here. And this guy, he wants to get good at music production. And because he has access to this very opulent place, he's able to garner a lot of connections through inviting people through to the studio. So look at your unique situation and figure out what things that you can do to provide value. If you engineer, you can offer mixing and mastering to people. If you have no skills, you need to build them first. You have to become as valuable as possible. That's why sample makers are valuable, because they can make samples that other producers can't. You have to build up your skill set, and that will make networking way easier.
Now, at this point, your beats are fire. You have a certain brand and identity that you know you're going to push. You have an idea about who you are as a producer and what it is that you want to represent and move forward. Now, this is probably the most important section, the most pivotal part of this whole class, because without this, your beats go nowhere. If you do not have a network, if you do not have people that you can send your beats and your melodies to, if you do not have people that you have connections to get into the studio, to get in front of artists, to connect with people, to actually really make those connections, if you do not have that, then your beats will stay on your hard drive forever. It's not happening, okay? So now we're gonna go into phase 3, which is networking. Okay, we're gonna get into phase 3. Now, this is a key to remember. Your network will begin with your value and multiply because of your brand. So nobody cares about your beats. Nobody cares about your melodies. Nobody cares about your sound. They care about how your beats, melodies, or sounds can help them. So A&Rs and engineers only want to connect with you because an A&R is going to get cool points. They're going to get raises. They're going to get looked at for higher positions if they're able to place your beat and your beat actually turns into a crazy song that has a lot of plays and streams and stuff like that. Okay. An engineer only cares about your beats because they know that your beats are going to actually sound good for the artist that they're working with. And if they're able to get good beats for the artist that they're working with, then they're going to be looked at in high regard by the artist. They're going to get paid more and they're going to have a more honored name in the industry because they're able to supply some crazy beats. But nobody just cares about your beats just in and of themselves. Okay, that's the first thing to remember. That's a major key. Now, we're going to be going over some pathways of networking in this. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different pathways. There's a lot of different strategies and ways to reach out to people and make connections and even maintain those connections over time. But I mean, that's way beyond the scope of this video. That would take way more hours than what this video is. But I am going to go over 2 major ones, which is essentially the sample maker pathway and the beat maker pathway. And I'm going to give some methods and how you can capitalize on these pathways. Okay, so the first pathway, the sample maker pathway. Essentially, the whole idea is simple. You create samples, and if you don't know what a sample is, it's essentially just the melody portion of the music. So let's say you have a song, you have guitar, you have piano, you have a choir. That is the sample. That's the melody, right? You're not making the drums in the sample maker pathway. You're only making the melody. So this is very good for those of you who love melodies and those of you who know how to play instruments, okay? So this is just creating the samples and then sending those samples to producers who already have placements with artists in that same lane that you're producing for. So this could be artists at all levels, whether they're underground, whether they're buzzing, or whether they're established. So this is one of the most powerful ways to get placements, especially if you're a producer who's overseas, or you're not living in a major music city, or you don't have many in-person connections yet. Essentially what you're doing is you're leveraging other people's relationships instead of trying to build everything from scratch. I've seen many people come on the internet and say sample making is dead, but that's not true. There are sample makers still getting placements right now. Okay, so that's how you know it's not dead. The key is you have to stand out. That just means a more focused and stronger niche and a stronger brand. Okay, now targeting. What you want to do is you want to connect with producers who produce for artists that would be able to use your samples. So there's a few ways you can go about targeting. The first method, which a lot of people know, is the Rap Genius method. Essentially what you do is you find an artist you want to produce for, you look at Rap Genius for their music credits, you follow all the producers who have produced for them on IG, you DM them with personalized message to get them to respond, and you start with value in the second message to see if they'll collab with you. And then you'll collect their contact info and begin to nurture that relationship. So I'll quickly show you how that could look if you're going to do the Rap Genius method. So I could come Rap Genius, Lil Baby, right? So let me just go to Lil Baby, Dumb, Dumb and Dumber. So now boom, you see once I look up a song, how the artists come up and how the producers come up. So now you can look Juke Wong, Wheezy. So you can go and hit up Juke Wong. Now I'm not telling you to go and hit him up after you watch this video. Like I'm gonna just go and hit him. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying this is just a method for finding artists and finding the producers. Finding the producers specifically who produce for certain artists. And then you might be able to find their loop email. You might be able to find their sample email on their Instagram. But then I have a DM strategy that I'm gonna show you a little bit later on. But that's essentially how you find the person. Okay, so that's the Rap Genius method. The next method is the YouTube method. So you're gonna look up type beat on YouTube of your sound. Then you're gonna look in the description for that producer's email and add that email to your email list or find their IG and then DM them. Now, I talk about DM them with a personalized method and then send a second DM, making the ask, but starting with value. Then you collect their info, begin to nurture the relationship. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. All you're doing is just looking up like Future Type Beat on YouTube. Look in the description for the producer's email because they'll probably put it in there, and then just DMing them, okay? It's not that complicated. Or adding them to your email list as well. Now, next thing, Instagram method. This is where you follow all the producers who are produced for the artist that you want to produce for on IG, and you stay ready. You pay attention to provide value when you can. So for example, let's say a producer is looking for a videographer, and they post that, like, man, I need a videographer, or I need somebody who can edit my videos. If you know someone who could do that, DM them and tell them that you could connect them and actually make that connection for them. What is that gonna do? Now that's gonna elevate you in that producer's eyes, and that producer is gonna be more likely to wanna work with you if you do make an ask later on, like, hey, can I send you some melodies? Hey, can we collab? They're gonna be more likely to wanna deal with you because you provided that amount of value to them. So this is a bit more unorthodox. You're not going straight direct with making an ask to send beats or making an ask to send melodies, but what you're doing is you're providing value, which is what networking is all about. You're providing that value up front so that you can actually make the connection and then actually have more reciprocity in the bank. Now, what do I mean by that when I say that? Let me break that down. As humans, we're kind of wired to feel like we owe people things when they do things for us. So the more you can do for another person, the more they'll feel like they should do for you. That's the principle of reciprocity, give and take. So if you can do more things for someone, the more likely they are to want to actually do for you. So use that when you're thinking about networking. Now, the next method is content method. Now, this is something that I haven't even revealed this to the public yet, but this is something that rips. It really helps you to connect with people. So essentially what you do is create a reel in the style of the producer. This especially works for producers who are not huge. They're not huge, but they're producers that you really rock with and you really like the sound of. So obviously you cannot do this for every single producer in the world, but do this for producers who you really rock with. This could really help you to get your foot in the door. Create a reel in the style of, let's say, you really like TNT, right? Rod Wave's main producer. You really love his music. It could even be someone who also produced for Rod Wave who's not as big as TNT. I'm just using TNT as an example. Create a beat that actually sounds like it was inspired by them. Most producers are not that famous. So if you make a video dedicated to them and their sound and say you were inspired by it, it could be a short form video. Really short video, real TikTok, and you tag them in it, put their face in it, most likely they're gonna see it. If you made a video like that about me, I'm gonna see it. And I'm going to respond to you because I'm like, wow, this person really likes my sound and they really get my sound and they really took the time to make a whole video about my sound. I need to check that out. Let me see what this person's talking about, right? If they like what they see, hold on. If they like it, you didn't see that typo. If they like it, they may want to actually work with you. So that's underrated. That's an underrated method. Now, if you go and spam that to a whole bunch of producers and your music is not good, you're just gonna get blocked. You're gonna get ignored. You wanna make sure your music is good before you even try that, okay? Now, you also don't wanna copy. That's why I said inspired by. It requires you to actually know how to make the good music. So you gotta get nice before you could do this. You have to get nice to the point where you can transform sounds into your own style before you do this. So don't just jump out there and do this with beats that are mediocre, okay? Now, as far as sending your samples out, once you have your email list, you're gonna send your samples out, email and SMS. So sometimes you could get producers' numbers, you can send your samples to their numbers. I'm more so a fan of sending emails, okay? I'm not big on like sending text samples like that, unless it's a producer that you're really locked in with and y'all just have a close connection and you know, your sound is something that they really rock with, you can send stuff to them as well. But I'm more so about creating that email list and just sending out on a regular cadence. That regular cadence could be daily, could be every other day, could be every week, could be every other week. Really just depends on you and your workflow and how often you want to send out. Now, tools. You could use a tool like MailSuite, which allows you to create lists and send to that list without using BCC or CC, because you don't want to get into a situation where you put all these producers in a BCC or you put all these producers in a CC which is essentially like sending to multiple emails at once, but everybody can see who you sent to. Everybody's in the email thread. Everybody can reply to it. It just looks very unprofessional, number one. And it also looks very, it just looks bad. Even though like producers know like these samples are getting sent out to other producers, hundreds of other producers usually. Nobody wants to see that. You know, it's like, you know that girl's been with however many guys, but you don't want to know. You know what I'm saying? It's like the same thing. You know, you don't want to know. So use something like MailSuite where it's just a list and you could just see that list. The next thing is Google Sheets. You want to keep your contacts organized. And the way you keep your contacts organized is by putting each email in the sheet so that you can just, you know, save that list. All right. So those are the main tools for sample making. Now, of course, it could get deeper. Because I'm still a sample maker, you know, I make samples and stuff like that. But that's generally how you would do it. Now, if you're a sample maker or you're someone who's interested in sample making and producing for major artists, but primarily through connecting with other producers by sending your samples to them, then this next interview is going to be very important for you to watch. This is one of my students, Danny, who's been able to go from being an unknown producer in China, not really having any music industry connections at all, to actually connecting with 40 plus industry producers who are working with major artists, like serious major artists, as a sample maker. So this is his story and how he's done it. And he shares some of his tactics, tricks, and secrets that even he came up with as a result of being inspired by some of the things that I taught him. So pay attention to this one. It's a good one.
First of all, I just want to introduce you. So you know, this is Danny, one of my best students and clients. Definitely a very hardworking individual, fire sample maker. So yeah, you could just let people know who you are, where you're from, and what you're about.
Yeah. So guys, my name is Danny Scratch, and I'm 19-year-old sample maker from New York. But I'm currently living in New York. I'm from China, right? Yeah. And I've been making like samples in general for like 1 or 2 years, but like making beats for like 4 years. And for like the last year, 2025, like I think June of 2025, I just started like my career trying to be a professional like sample maker, to reach out to more people and like sending weeklies and stuff to other producers like regularly, definitely, and trying to get a placement. Yeah, that's what like my main focus right now.
Cool, nice. So what was like your main struggle that you were having before you came to me?
Yeah, at first I think I definitely asked you like how to narrow down like to one specific niche, specific sound. And because at that time I was making like pain loops, like trap loops, like glow loops in general, all that kind of different things going on. But it kind of like drowned me for a bit, because you know I couldn't like reach out to 1,000 of producers who make different genres, but I only make like 2 or 3. You know, just I couldn't meet their demand and stuff. So I would like to definitely like narrow down the sound and only work with like the producers who are making that sound. Like it's still like a plenty of this type of producers, but you know I would just feel much better when it comes to like workflow and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely easier to like build a network when you have like a distinct sound or two that you're known for and that you're able to create on demand. Like if a producer's in the studio or something like that, and they're like, yo, I need loops for this person, it's like you already got them on deck, versus like having to make a whole different sound that maybe you're not used to or something like that. So yeah, that's good.
You're totally right, man.
Right. So what's like the biggest change between where you were when you first started with me, or before you even started with me, to where you are now in terms of your music production journey?
At first, I was just like sending out loops from like different Discord server that I found on IG, and I wasn't getting like any feedback, like positive feedback. Yeah. But after that, like I learned a lot from Now's like program, because it has different like network strategy, network courses, and also you can just directly ask Now to ask him like what type of DM should I send to other producers through IGs and stuff. So with this help, I can like directly work with like the producers that I want to work with, definitely. And yeah, I've been getting some connections. I get like over 40 connections with like all these industry people that I'm really glad that I can see the changes. It's definitely better. I do hear some like good like collabs with from them, like it's pretty good. Even though I haven't got any like snippet or song yet, but it takes some time. I would definitely be patient and like strive for it. Definitely, yeah.
For sure, for sure. I know it's coming soon. Like that placement is definitely coming soon because
Appreciate it.
went from the point where I have connections like that to now, like you said, making over 40 connections with industry producers. So now it's just a matter of time as long as you stay consistent with your sound and continue to send stuff out. It's gonna be one day where you post that song and it's gonna be like, yeah, my first, major.
Yeah,
Yeah, looking forward to
yeah.
that. So like who are some of the producers that you've been able to connect with and like what artists are they working with?
Oh, so basically, I listen to a lot of Lucky V, like basically, I listen to like Lucky V's and Babyface Ray, Lucky V Fat. Like those are the artists that I listen to like on daily basis. So I definitely have more expertise in making like loops in their styles. So definitely, I reach out to producers who are close to them. So I work with like he's like Lucky V Fat's really close like engineer and stuff. I had to give a big shout out to like he's like he like basically executive produced like Babyface Ray's last album. It was kind of crazy. I just found his loop email through his like IG story, but I just kept sending stuff for him and like keep building connections with him. And one day he just like reached me back and stuff. So that was, and also he's like pretty close to like listening to my loops like every time. So I definitely very appreciated for him. And also other producers like he's like Chucky, like Lucky's producer from Chicago. Those are the connections that I have right now. And I hope to definitely work with more of these people. Yeah.
Okay, fire, fire. Yeah, it's interesting how you said like you saw his loop email and then you started sending. And I remember we
Mm.
had a conversation one time where you were like, man, should I take these people off of my loop email? They're
Oh,
not
yeah.
responding or anything like that. And I told you like, nah, you got to keep, just pushing and keep sending. A lot of times producers, like especially when you're doing sample making, a lot of times they won't respond. Like they'll just use your music, you know, post even send your beats out to artists and stuff like that, and you'll have no clue until you actually get a song, you hear a snippet or the song drops. So the fact that you continue to send and then eventually you got some feedback and some responses is good. It shows that it's not necessarily about just one time and then they didn't respond, so I'm gonna give up. It's like, nah, you gotta be consistent, with everything. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because that's one thing about you that you keep it consistent, even when it's like your output may not be as high, you still maintain and do things that keep you on the right track. So how has consistency been important for you?
Yeah, I would say it's like pretty important. Like before, or like only like even like the first few weeks that I joined your program, like I wasn't being that consistent. But I felt like, and I wasn't using like any like email track tools and stuff, so I didn't know like whether the other producers were like really checking my emails and stuff. So I was kind of like frustrated, but after like elevate my strategy and stuff, I also became more like productive and consistent. So I basically send out like 5 loops per pack. Like I would send like 1 or 2 times per week, and so I became like this consistent for like 3 months, 2 months. So that definitely helps because I would definitely get more like faster, I would say email open rate and sometimes some collabs. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Nice, nice. Now, one thing too that was interesting about your whole process is that you have very creative ways of like making your connections with different producers. So like can you talk about that a little bit about like some of your ways of like actually making the connection and how it may not necessarily just be about like, oh, can I send some loops, but you may have to like be a little bit more creative with it.
Yes. So last time, like I was talking to like he's like I was talking to like Babyface for his producer. I reached out to him like several times before, but like he wasn't like directly responding for like loops and stuff. But at one time he was like posting on like an IG story. He said, "Oh, he needs some suggestions for new sound kits, VSTs and stuff." So I would just like give him some of my go-to like kits and stuff. That's fire. And he checked the DM and said appreciate it, bro, and blah blah blah, and like liked all my posts and stuff. I was definitely like feel like this definitely a good way to build a connection. It's not just always bother other producers to ask, can I send some loops and stuff, but it's definitely a better way for you for other sample makers to like just yeah choose probably like a IG story or whatever that's not necessarily like music related, but also you can come and like DM like the producer that you want to work with. Maybe they would check them because they're all humans too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like what you said, it goes back to the idea of value, and that's one of the things that
Uh,
we talk about a lot. Is like when you're networking, just making sure that you can provide some sort of value to the person that you're trying to network with. And sometimes the value will just be your samples. But if you see that there's some sort of gap that you can fill, like you have either the skill or the resources to fill that gap, then go ahead and do it because now you can make the connection, just based off of that. So that's a really good way to just get that connection is to like just look at what this person needs, what do they want, what are they asking for, and then providing that value to them, like you did with this person.
yes, exactly.
Right. What do you feel like was the best part about working with me?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I feel like the best part of working with now is definitely like you have another person that has the expertise and experience to guide you and also to push you to do certain things. Like for me, I'm not that like, you know, this discipline. I didn't have that much like self discipline and stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't like DM like 5 people a day to find more people, but now can help you do it because now can not help it but like guide you to do it. He will keep like checking in with your like record. I mean like keep on with your like how you how well you're doing or something like that. Like so it will definitely become easier for you to do the task because you have another person to monitor you. Yeah,
For
I feel
sure.
like that's very good. Mhm.
Nice. Cool. Appreciate that. So if somebody was thinking about joining and they were like, man, I don't know, should I do this? Should I go and get this type of help, this type of mentorship, this type of coaching? And they were like on the fence about it. What would you tell them?
Well, I would say don't hesitate because you have to definitely invest yourself in some degrees to like transform yourself like into a better like status in music production, and definitely like joining like now's mentorship program is very worth because like he would definitely help you to get in the door of like kind of like the industry, but oh, I still you still need to like be prepared and work on your stuff while improving like while now teaching you all the important stuff you have to practicing them, and that will be fine. For me, even though I had some improvement, I wasn't like being that fully maximizing my like my time and stuff. I wasn't being that self-disciplined, as I said. But if you have the willingness and like the discipline, and you will definitely see the result. I would say probably placement or like money wise, you will definitely see some like significant results from joining this program.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. You did wonderful. You're still doing a wonderful job, bro. And I'm so excited to like see that placement, come to fruition. As long as you just stay consistent. Like I said, it's that consistency. That's what's gonna do it. That consistency of working on your music and then also making sure you're handling the networking
side of things as well. Like they go hand in hand. And I think that you've seen that, as you become more consistent with your networking and stuff too.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So make sure y'all follow Danny Scratch, man. Fire Sample Maker. Tap in with him.
Now, the next thing is the beatmaker pathway. Now, the beatmaker pathway includes a method which I call the stair-step method. So essentially what the stair-step method is it's a way for producers to connect with major artists. The truth is, most major artists, you're not just going to DM them and get a response. You're not just going to DM Drake and get a response. You're not just going to DM Future and get a response. You're not just going to DM Young Thug and get a response. You're not just going to DM Lil Baby and get a response, and all these other artists. That's just not how it works. You're not just going to DM SZA and get a response, most likely. Most major artists are not checking their DMs like that. But the stair-step method exists because most major artists have people around them who are not famous. They have friends who are rappers. They have other producers. They got engineers. They have people who also make music but don't have the same level of clout that they associate with. So your goal with the stair-step method is to start at the lowest rung you can possibly reach. This artist should be someone who makes music in the niche or the style that you chose. So step one is identify the lowest rung. It's very simple. Figure out who the lowest rung is. You can do this straight off of Instagram. Ask yourself, who is this artist reposting? Who are they constantly posting on the story? Who are they shouting out? Who are they liking and commenting on? Sometimes you'll see a major artist repost another rapper with like 5,000 followers and you'll be like, who is this? And you'll just ignore it. No, don't ignore that. That might be one of their friends. That's somebody you can reach if your brand, the way you look on Instagram, and your sound are already dialed in. So step two is DM the artist directly, their management and their main current producers. These are people you DM. And when you DM them, you're not just saying, yo, can I send beats for the artist? You're connecting based off of value, right? Step three, use what you have. Everyone has something that they can leverage. If you have access to a studio in Atlanta or whatever city you're in, where people can pull up and make music all day and make music, or all day and night and make music, use that. If you're cold at samples, use that. If you have a great personality and fire with beats, see if you could collab with them in person. If the artist likes rare sneakers and you know where to get them, use that as an in. This part where you use what you have takes creativity. Sometimes it takes some help. You got to use whatever advantage you actually have in order to get that in with an artist or the person. Now, next step, visibility creates access. So post the songs you create, studio sessions you have with people in this camp, and pictures of yourself around this camp. So if you work with this artist, post about it. Post the studio sessions. Actually become close with this person that you just connected with. And that will now allow you to network laterally with other artists who are on that artist's same level, who probably also have connections to bigger people in the industry, and those who are right above them. So I'm gonna give you an example of that, right? Let me give you an example of that. Lil Baby has a label, right? He has a label, and one of his artists is named Rallo Rodriguez. That's an artist who's not as big as Lil Baby. He's smaller than Lil Baby, but he has a large amount of reach as well. Rallo Rodriguez has other artists who he's cool with that also make music that may not be signed to Lil Baby, but they may be cool with Rilo. Okay? Lil Baby also has other artists like Nuda, who's smaller than Rilo. So one of the things that you could do as an artist that's coming up, or a producer that's coming up rather, is you could look at the fact that we got Nuda, we got Rilo, we got Lil Baby. So how do I get up those ranks? Well, let me start with Nuda. Who works with Nuda? Who's Nuda's engineer? Who is his producers that work with him? Who are some of the people that are around him that rap that aren't necessarily signed to Lil Baby? See, it's every level you can do this. So now let me start with Nuda's friend who raps, but isn't signed yet. Let me just lock in with him. Let me make some beats. Let me make some songs for him. And then as we develop that relationship, let me see if I can get something with Nuda. Now, most likely this is going to happen because you're around all the time. So eventually you're going to see him. Eventually you're going to be able to make that connection. You see? Now this works especially well if you can be in person, but it can also work online too. It can definitely work online. This is the same thing that I did when it came to working with like Slime Life Shawty. Like I was like, yo, I want to work with. And if you don't know who Slime Life Shawty is, he was an underground producer not underground producer. He was an artist that was really gaining a lot of traction in Atlanta at one point, and he was probably the biggest upcoming artist in Atlanta. And I was working with him. I had a lot of connections just based off of working with him. I digress. Now, Like I said, now that you're gaming a name within the specific camp and area, you want to start to reach out with people who are a level above the artist you work with. So you can talk to the engineer. He might produce and engineer for higher tier artists as well. You can talk to the friends and the artist directly, depending on their ego. If the artist has a really big ego, then it might be hard for him. He might not want to connect you with other people, unfortunately. But if the artist is not that big of an ego and he's like really locked in with you and you've gained a good relationship, you can make that ask like, yo, what's up with Rallo? I got some stuff for him. Can you know who I can talk to or who I can send some stuff to, like in order to get that popping? If you got an artist that you're really cool with, they're gonna put you on. They're gonna help you. And eventually you'll get to the top artists and producers, okay? Now, of course, there are even more DM strategies, outreach strategies, and network strategies that can help with this, but those things have to be personalized to your situation. That's something that I save for people I coach. But for the most part, it's very simple. Start low, start with value, you build real relationships, and you move up one step at a time. That's the stair-step method when it comes to getting placements with artists. Now, we're gonna go into the last part of the networking section, which is how to not sound like an NPC when you DM, okay? I get so many DMs with people saying, yo, can I send loops? Yo, bro, that song you did with Lil Baby is hard. Can I send some loops? It's like, bro, do you know how many people send that message every day? Do you know how many people get ignored every day? Stop sending that. Stop sending messages like that. That's not going to get you the responses. So I'm going to give you the real sauce, the real way to actually network and get responses. So number one, the first thing you want to do is you want to start with an offering instead of starting with an ask. You start off with why you're there and personalize the message. The first message is just to get a response. That's it. You want to get out of the request of that producer. So what do I mean when I say start with an offering? Let's look at this in a spiritual sense for a second. And I'm not going to go into religion, but I'm just speaking from an idea of spiritual perspective, right? Now, imagine you think about when people were like praying to like these different gods or even praying to God, right? One of the things they would do is like they would offer God water, or they would offer God an animal, or they would offer God, just like in a different worldview, they would offer God thanks. Like before I even ask for anything, I'm just going to say thank you, right? So they're giving before they could take. Well, that's a spiritual principle. In order to get good at making music, what do you have to do? You have to give time, you have to give effort, you have to give attention to actually getting good. In order to actually get anything from anyone, you have to give them something first. If you just try to start by taking something, people are going to be less likely to want to work with you. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong, but it's because you're operating outside of the normal spiritual laws. There's something that you want for them, so you have to give them something first. A lot of times, what is that for us? Money. It doesn't have to be money though. So instead of starting with, hey, let me send you some loops so I could get a placement with one of the artists that you've worked hard to get connections to. Instead of starting with that, start with an offering. So, yo, Nile Waves, that beat you made for the song Addicted is crazy. How did you get the sense to sound like that, right? So what are they offering me here? They're offering me here love. They're offering me here attention. Like, yo, I really paid attention to what you did. The sense in that you made them sound crazy in a way that I never heard before. So now I feel like I'm being valued as a producer. You just gave me an experience with me reading this message rather than just giving me a generic compliment. You gave me something specific, right? You give a producer something specific, not generic, something that actually connects with them. Like if a producer say, yo, nah, I really love how you talk about the different spiritual ideas when it comes to music production or when it comes to manifestation. And I was wondering, like, what made you want to do that? Like, what inspires that? I'm more likely to open that message to somebody that just says, yo, can I send loops? And now, if that person does want to send loops, I'm more likely to send them my email so they can send loops to me. Now, some of y'all are going to take that and try to DM me and be like, yo, I know what you're doing. You can't do that no more because I leaked the message to you. So you can't try that on me. It's not going to work. Okay. But this will work. I promise you it will work. Now, it doesn't just have to be around music. Like I said, what you send can also be based around the producer's ideas or the philosophy as a whole, not just music. You got to pay attention to the producer that you want to work with. You know what I'm saying? Like me, for example, I've been traveling a lot. I've been in Africa traveling and just experiencing the world. So somebody might DM me talking about that, right? That's gonna make me more engaged and more likely to actually respond than someone who just DMs me randomly asking me for something. Okay, and that goes for most producers, I'm telling you. So once you get the producer to respond, the next message you're gonna send is you're going to try to intrigue them and then make your ask. Now, this could be something you know they need, but this message takes creativity because it's very circumstantial. So like, for example, me, I've been making more R&B vibes lately. Like someone could look at my page and tell like, I'm trying to push my own artist now. And they could tell like, okay, he's shifting in more of an R&B direction. So if you have something that fits the vibe that I'm on, then say that. Like, yo, I saw that you have this new artist, and say what who the artist is. You have this new artist, Rather God, and he's making this like really new wave neo soul music. Yo, I got some vibes in that style. Like, want to check him out? I'm gonna be like, yeah, let me see what you got. Cause now you're actually filling a gap that I have. Maybe I don't have enough of that style or enough sample makers who are working on that with me. So now I have another person who can help me to actually reach my goals. Now you're providing value instead of just asking to send your stuff, which is gonna be seen as you just trying to take. You're actually providing value and seeking to make a connection. Let's say you see that and you're like, man, I don't even know how to make the stuff that this guy is working on, but I would love to work with him. Go and learn to make it. You learned how to get nice at one specific style. Now you can know how to get nice at a whole bunch of styles. That's the whole point of that. Go learn it and then give it to them. And then now you actually can make that connection. This is advanced networking. This is the stuff that people are not willing to do. I'm gonna keep it real. Let me make my face bigger in this part. This is the stuff that people are not willing to do. I promise you. The video, like the content where you're making something specifically about that person, being very specific about how you're reaching out to people and what you can provide based on what they actually need, not based on what you want to give them. This is the stuff most people are not willing to do. Most producers are not going to do this. They're going to watch this and they're not going to do it. So if you do it, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to be the one that gets the connection. So do it. Don't just watch this. Actually do it. I promise you something is going to happen out of this for you if you just do it. So this is what happens when things become more quote unquote saturated. You have to do more. You have to be more strategic. You have to be more creative. Networking isn't dead. DMing artists and producers and trying to work with them isn't dead. You just have to do it in a more strategic way. And that's what I'm going over. So next, you want to maintain the connection of being an avid supporter of the person, constantly liking their stuff, replying to their stories, and being visible in their ecosystem, providing value, not just being an NPC. I have a producer I'm very locked in right now whose name is Huncho Bree. And one of the things that he did to get my attention was he made a melody in the style of a melody that I had posted to one of my Instagram carousels. And it was like one of the beats that I put in one of my carousels after my pictures. And he said that was one of his favorite beats. And he made a beat that had a similar title to the beat that I made. He posted it on the story and I was like, yo, this is really like kind of my vibe. Like, I like this style. And I DM'd him and we've been locked in ever since then. You see what I'm saying? And now this is somebody who's also, attended some of my classes. He's seen some of my videos. He's liked my stuff, like he's commented. So I've seen him around, but it wasn't until then that I was like, yo, let's lock in. And I reached back out to him like, yo, let's lock in. So being in the ecosystem of the producer that you want to work with or the artist that you want to work with can help you tremendously because they're constantly seeing your name. They're constantly seeing your face. They're constantly seeing you show love and support. That's a way to get in as well. Now, why did I lock in with him? Because his music was actually fire. If your music isn't fire, I'm going to keep stressing this. It's not going to work. None of this will work unless your music is fire. Now, I'll give you another example. There's someone who made a whole Discord server for me. Now, I've never used it because I have my own thing with like Discord channels and I never wanted to have like a dead producer Discord channel. It's just sad to me, right? But if that person asks me to collab or wants to send samples or something, I'm gonna accept the samples, okay? I'm way more likely to work with this person than a random person who just asked to send samples because they provided value to me. So you want to see how you can provide value. That's what networking is all about. Value that you could provide. Okay? And how you can connect with someone based on the value that you provide each other. So that's how you DM and connect without being an NPC. Now, doing all of this stuff on your own can definitely take time, and making it work for you actually can take a lot longer because everything needs to be personalized to your specific situation. Each one of these phases will be different depending on what type of producer you are and what your goals are. That's why I help producers one-on-one through teaching them the PRP system, or the Placement Ready Producer System. So if you want faster progress and real results, this is where PRP comes in. I will work with you personally. Now, here's what you get when you work with me. You get the complete PRP system that trains you to consistently create industry quality placement ready beats without guessing. You get placement ready blueprint that gives you the exact chords and melodies you need, as well as frameworks for sound selection and arranging your beats properly. You get a personalized weekly roadmap so you always know what to work on and you're not confused. Then you get live one-on-one coaching and feedback on your beats and melodies. You also get live one-on-one cookups so you can see in real time what placement ready production looks and sounds like, and receive real-time feedback and corrections so you're not guessing about what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you need to do to fix, but you actually know because I'm giving you that feedback in real time. Now, you also get live group coaching and accountability to keep you moving forward and consistent. You also get a community of serious producers who are focused on getting better and sharing opportunities and collaborating. You also get a personalized placement strategy showing you how to brand yourself, network, and connect with real artists and producers. You get a time management solution so you can create consistently without worrying about time constraints. You even get my exact outreach methods and DM frameworks to get real responses from artists and producers that you may want to collaborate with. Along with all of that, you get industry quality drum kits and sound kits to instantly raise your production level, and a complete structure that turns your skill into real placements and opportunities. Now, if you follow the system, show up to the calls, and implement what I teach, and you still can't consistently create finished industry quality beats and melodies, or feel unclear about how to position yourself for placements, I'll keep working with you for free until you can. If this is something that you're interested in, click the link in the pinned comment to book a free strategy session with me, and we'll go over where you're at musically, where you want to go, and if I can help you to get there. Now, if you've made it all the way to this part, you're probably like 80% ahead of all other producers, because most producers did not watch it all the way here. That's just the nature of videos, but that's just the nature of people wanting to actually succeed versus people who don't. Okay, the difference between people who say they want to succeed versus the people who actually do and take action. So if you're here, I know that you're most likely an action taker. Therefore, because you're here, anything that you ask me, literally, I will give you one question. All you have to do is say, PRP action. DM me that. PRP action. If you DM me PRP action, I will answer you personally any question that you have for me as it pertains to music production. I'll answer it for you personally because you're an action taker and you made it this far. Just DM me on Instagram and I'll waves. Now, before we completely end this video, I need to speak about the mindset that's going to separate you from every other producer out there. And this mindset is a mindset of obsession. Now, when I say obsession, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about relentless action towards the completion of your goals. I'm talking about you doing anything, whatever it's going to take, in order for you to actually get that placement, in order for you to create better music, in order for you to create a better brand, in order for you to expand your network. You're doing the things that it takes in order to get to that place that you want to be. Without this mindset of relentless action, you're going to get beat every time by somebody who does have that. There's some producers who are inconsistent. They're literally just sitting there making a beat, getting demotivated, don't hit FL again for another week or a half. And then there's somebody like me who literally lock themselves in a room and make 10 beats a day for 100 days straight. Who do you think is going to get further ahead? There's someone like me who will literally sit down and DM 50 producers every day. And I don't care if I get 1 response every day or 5 responses, but I'm getting responses and I'm gonna add them to my email list. You cannot afford to be lazy with this. You cannot afford to procrastinate. You have to make this the center of your life, beyond the divine, beyond God, beyond your spirituality, of course, beyond your family. I'm not speaking about just throwing everything to the side, but beyond those core things, this has to become the core and center of your purpose and what you're aiming towards if you want to really do this at the highest level. So that requires putting other things aside. You might have to make some sacrifices. Like I told you, for me, it was my video game. But my video game represented something. It represented something that I would go to when I didn't want to deal with life. It would represent something that I would go to when I didn't want to deal with the things that were tough. It would represent something that I would use to procrastinate on the real goals that I actually had. So I had to get it out the way. For you, it might be something else. It might be those videos you watch at night when nobody's around. You might got to get rid of that. It might be some of the friends that you have that don't really support your goals and your mission. It might be social media, you being on TikTok too much, man. It might be you watching too much streaming. It might be you going to the bar every Friday night or every Saturday night. It's different for everyone, but you have to cut those distractions out. You have to cut those vices out and really make this the center of where you get your dopamine from. I get my dopamine from making beats. I get my dopamine from progressing on my music production journey, from progressing in my music production career. That's where I get my dopamine from. So yeah, I'm excited to go on FL. I'm excited to make the next melody, to make the next beat. You see what I'm saying? That's what feeds and drives me. So this has to start to become your driver. This has to become what starts to feed you. If it's not, then you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat by somebody who is being driven by this. So I don't speak much about motivation. I do not speak much about how to get motivated or how to get yourself out of bed and really want to make music. I don't. Because the motivation isn't going to be enough. Motivation is very temporary. You get some motivation for a day. You're probably going to get, after you watch this, you're going to get so much motivation. So much motivation to lock in, to work, to apply everything. And then after day 3, it's going to dwindle a little bit. You're going to hit some roadblocks. There's going to be what we call friction. There's going to be a sense of resistance because you're becoming somebody different. See, you're becoming somebody beyond what you've been up until this point. So of course it's going to be uncomfortable because you're growing. When we grow, what happens? We become uncomfortable. Even when we physically grow, what do we get? Growing pains. When we're in the gym and we're working out, what happens? Our muscles hurt because they're starting to grow bigger. We have to break them down. We have to get, our muscles stretched out. And then after, when we're resting, they still hurt because why? They're being repaired and then they grow bigger. So the process of growth always comes with some level of discomfort. Always. So you have to accept that. And you have to know in order to get to where you're going and to get to where you envision yourself being as a music producer, there's going to be some discomfort there. So how do you deal with that? You deal with that by actually accepting that and embracing the discomfort and knowing that it's just a part of the process to get to where you want to go. You see, for me, that discomfort might be staying up late, barely getting any sleep, sleeping like 5 hours a night. For a time, I did that. Is it the healthiest thing? No. Did it help me? Yes. I'm sitting with multi-platinum plaques. I'm a full-time producer. I could literally get up and just make beats all day. That's my life. And I want that to be your life too, if that's what you desire. So there's going to have to be some things that you do that are more extreme than others. It's period. Think about this. What percentage of producers do you think actually make it and become full-time music producers? How many music producers actually go and get a plaque? Out of the millions of music producers who want to do those things? Probably not many. So let's just say 5%. The top 5% of music producers are the ones who actually make it and get the plaques, get the placements, be able to, they're able to go full time, and 95% of music producers don't. What separates the 5% from the 95%? The only thing that separates these two groups is the decisions that the 5% decide to make. That's it. Because they both could have the same musicality. There's people in the 95%, there's producers who make way harder beats than me that aren't where I'm at. There's producers that make way more fire beats than me that are not able to do this full time. Why? Because everything that I taught in this class, I dug in deep and apply it relentlessly, and I will not stop. That's the difference between the 95% and the 5%. 95% might get really good at making beats, but they don't want to brand, they don't want to network, and they never get to where they could be. 95% might be inconsistent with their posting, might be inconsistent with making beats, might be inconsistent with networking. They don't get to where they want to be. But the 5% says, I'm going to make this happen by any means necessary. I'm going to go and get whatever help I need. I'm going to use every resource at my disposal. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And they make it happen. That's what the 5% does. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to be in the 95% or the 5%? And what would that 5% version of me do right now, moving forward, after watching this video, after taking all this in? What would the 5% me do? Would they watch this video, forget about it, be inconsistent, continue to move in that way? Or would they say, no, I'm locked in. I'm going to get my placements. I'm going to get my plaques. I'm going to move on this. I'm going to put this work in. You have to make that decision yourself. And remember that every single decision you make is a vote for the person that you are becoming. It's either going to take you closer to your goal or further away from it. So you have to weigh everything against who it is that you're aiming to become. Yo, you got Sunday off from work. Your friend says, hey, yo, let's go tailgate. Football game, man. Let's get drunk. Let's party. But you got a whole Sunday where you could be making beats. What do you think the 5% producer does? Really? What do you think? I'm not even going to answer that question for you. Now, you might be like, man, that's extreme, man. I'm going to just not hang out with my friends as much and not go out as much and not, yeah, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. You see what I'm saying? That's what it takes. Now, some of y'all are younger watching this, some of y'all are older. For those of you who are younger, let me speak to you for a second. If you're younger and you don't have any responsibilities, you don't have bills like that, you don't have children to take care of like that, you don't have all these different responsibilities pulling you, and you have max time, you need to be spending all that free time making music. That's what I would tell you to do. Be extreme. As much as that time you can take learning music, making music, producing, do it. Am I saying don't go to the gym? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying don't hang out with your friends? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the more extreme you could be in terms of pursuing your music production goals, the better things will be for you. Because the more you can do what other people won't do, the more you set yourself up to be in that 5%. Because in order to be in the 5%, that means that you do things that 95% of people will not do and are not doing. 95% of people are not taking 16 hours out of their day to focus on music production. 12 hours of the day to focus on music production. They might take 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, but they're not taking all the time they have. Okay, so that's for the young guys or the young gals as well. Now, for the older guys and gals who may have a family, who may have a career, who may have things that are going on, don't think that this doesn't still apply to you. There's a quote by a businessman. His name is Alex Hormozi, and he said something very important. He said, your 9 to 5 isn't ruining your dreams. Your 5 to 9 is. How do you spend your 5 to 9? How are you spending that time where you're not working? How are you spending that time before you have to go to work? Are you using it to your utmost capability? Are you using your off days to your utmost capability? You see? Some people might use vacation days to go on vacation. Others might use vacation days to make beats. Which one do you think sounds like a 5% way to move? You can answer that question for yourself. So you've got to become obsessed with this. This has to become an obsession for you where you literally just are like, man, I'm locked in. This is what I'm doing. I'm gonna make it to this point. I'm gonna make it to this vision. And that's one of the things that I help with my students. Like I tell them, you gotta create a vision. And every single thing you do has to be tied into that vision and making sure that it actually happens. So, thank you for tuning into this video, supporting the Now Waves channel. If you are new, make sure you hit that subscribe, make sure you hit the like button, and leave some comments about what you thought about this video, what you liked, what you may need some more help with, because obviously I can make more videos expanding on some of the things in here. And once again, if you're a producer who's serious about locking in, if you want to accelerate your progress, if you don't want to waste time trying to figure everything out on your own, hit the link in the pinned comment to apply to work with me one-on-one. We'll have a free strategy call where we'll go over your situation and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do in order to improve. Best case scenario, we work together and I help you get to where you're trying to go quicker than if you're going at it alone. Worst case scenario, you leave the call with a strategy and roadmap to move forward. So now, it's been great. This was a long video, I think my longest video on this channel, but hopefully it helps. Willfully it helps. Peace.